American Comics, starting with Superman. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 201, Hawkgirl. Leah stared at Hawkgirl's back, feeling bewildered. What the hell was going on? Had Hawkgirl seen through his disguise? That wasn't right. If she'd discovered he was an imposter, she'd have greeted him with her mace, not spoken to him. Leah pondered for a moment, then decided to follow. Outside the prison, Hawkgirl led Leah to a blind spot where the surveillance cameras weren't working. Then, turning around, her eyes fixed on Leah, as if they could spit fire. Now, up close, Leah took a good look at Hawkgirl's features. Unlike his memories from his previous life, Hawkgirl, though Egyptian, had a slightly darker complexion, but her face was beautifully crafted, as if meticulously carved. At least not the buck-toothed image she portrayed in TV dramas. Overall, the real Hawkgirl was a beauty like Cleopatra. What do you want to tell me? Leah said calmly, but he was ready to strike at any moment. You've been with Superman so much lately. Do you know how much I've missed you? Hawkgirl said, her voice filled with sorrow, leaving Leah completely speechless. The next moment, Hawkgirl pounced, grasping Leah's face, or rather, Diana's face, pressing him against the wall and kissing him passionately. Leah was stunned. Of course, he knew Hawkgirl wasn't kissing him, but Wonder Woman. Leah had transformed into Wonder Woman using a form of transformation. Hawkeye, Leah tried to push her away, but her eyes were filled with sorrow, like a fragile, abandoned woman. Now that you have Superman, you want to dump me, Hawkgirl whispered, her eyes gleaming. How to answer this? Leah was truly overwhelmed. I never thought Wonder Woman and Hawkgirl from the Injustice universe would have such a relationship. Democracy, harmony, prosperity. You know why I wrote this paragraph? If Hawkgirl knew I was Diana, she'd kill me, Leah felt certain. But now that things had come to this, they might as well go all out. Hawkgirl had been the first to ask, and Leah claimed she'd been coerced. Democracy, harmony, prosperity, adhering to core values that prioritize people. Sensing Hawkgirl had reached a certain point, Leah leaned close to her ear, exhaled a puff of hot air, and asked, do you remember the combination to the cell, 0614? Louise's birthday. You forgot, Hawkgirl panted. Her of course not. Leah didn't say anything more, opening her mouth and gently biting the combination. Hawkgirl suddenly frowned. Diana, your Vulcan sword is on me. Then, she reached out and grabbed Leah's Vulcan sword. Wait, don't. By the time Leah realized what was wrong and tried to stop Hawkgirl's hand, it was too late. There I go again. Before working at height, I should carefully check the safety equipment used. Safety belts, safety nets, and other equipment must meet safety technical standards. Who are you? Hawkgirl's eyes grew fierce. She took a few steps back, a mace appearing in her hand as she glared at Leah with fury. I'm Dan. Damn it, Leah didn't bother with Hawkgirl anymore and launched a slap with divine power. Crack. Snap. Hawkgirl was only a demigod after all, and the combined force of Leah's speed, divine strength, and brute force knocked her unconscious. She slammed against the wall and collapsed to the ground. Leah straightened her clothes, took a deep breath, and walked out with a composed expression. Now that she knew the cell code, rescuing the Flash and the others, and then destroying the watchtower, everything was under control. Back at the prison, the guards didn't comment on Wonder Woman's return. This time, Leah walked up to the three-man cell with confidence, raised his hand to enter the password, and said, You three, Superman wants to see you. Why does Superman want to see us? Shazam asked, his face sullen. Ray Palmer shrugged casually. What else can he do? Kill us, of course. I knew this would be the outcome the day we did it. Barry Allen, the Flash, however, stared at Leah silently for a long time, opened his mouth, but said nothing. The three-man cell was opened, and Leah stood at the door, beckoning, Follow me and you'll find out. Don't ask so many questions. Hurry. Shazam looked reluctant. He glanced at Ray Palmer, then at Barry Allen. Hey, You two, are you really not going to put up a fight? Ray Palmer was no longer a normal person without his Atom suit, but the Flash still possessed superpowers. Barry not only did not resist, but also glared at Shazam fiercely. Billy, shut up, don't mess around. After being scolded like this, Shazam was a little stunned at first, but after thinking about the details just now, he looked at Leah meaningfully, and then shut up. On the bridge, Cyborg and Superman stared at the light curtain with serious eyes. Ares and Wonder Woman were fighting hard, and Batman and Killer Frost cooperated with each other and successfully restrained Black Adam. On the military side, the riot in Iron Mountain prison quickly affected the prisons in the surrounding cities, and a large number of police forces were required to suppress it. I didn't expect Bruce to be able to do this, and the Man in Black didn't show up. Well, call Hawkgirl, she and I will go to Earth. Superman was going to take action himself. Cyborg knew that the battle was about to end. He opened the communication channel. Hawkeye, when you hear this, rush to Earth and support Wonder Woman. Hawkgirl, please reply if you hear me. Chapter 202, Battle with Superman. Chapter 201, Hawkgirl, believing the Diana Leah had transformed into was Diana herself, enthusiastically engaged in some indescribable, immediately blocked plot. Leah then seized the opportunity to inquire about the cell code, but was caught by some unspeakable detail. Who are you? Hawkgirl's eyes sharpened, and she abruptly stepped back. A mace appeared in her hand, and she glared at Leah with fury. I'm Diana. Damn it, Leah, unwilling to bother with Hawkgirl, launched a slap at her with a thunderous blast of divine power. Crack. Snap. Hawkgirl was only a demigod after all, and with the combined power of Leah's speed, divine strength, and brute force, the slap knocked her unconscious, slamming her against the wall and collapsing. Leah straightened her clothes, took a deep breath, and walked out with a composed expression. Now that she knew the cell code, rescuing the Flash and the others, and then destroying the Watchtower, everything was under her control. Back at the prison, the guards, seeing Wonder Woman had returned, said nothing. Leah, this time confidently, walked to the three-man cell, raised his hand, and entered the password, saying, "You three, Superman wants to see you." Why would Superman want to see us? Shazam asked, his face grim. Ray Palmer shrugged casually. What else? Kill us, of course. I knew this would happen the day we did it. Barry Allen, the Flash, however, stared at Leah for a long, silent look. He opened his mouth, but said nothing. Leah stood at the doorway, beckoning, "Follow me and you'll find out. Don't ask so many questions. Hurry." Shazam, looking reluctant, glanced at Ray Palmer, then at Barry Allen. Hey, you two, are you going to put up a fight? Without his Atom suit, Ray Palmer was just an ordinary man, but the Flash still possessed superpowers. Far from resisting, Barry glared at Shazam fiercely. Billy, shut up. Don't mess around. Shazam was stunned at first by the rebuke, but after reflecting on the details, he gave Lee a meaningful look and fell silent. On the bridge, Cyborg and Superman stared intently at the light screen. Ares and Wonder Woman were locked in a close fight, while Batman and Killer Frost worked together to successfully contain Black Adam. Back in the military, the riot at Iron Mountain prison quickly spread to prisons in surrounding cities, requiring a massive police force to suppress. I didn't expect Bruce to go this far, and that Man in Black hasn't shown up yet. Well, call Hawkgirl, I'll go to Earth with her. Superman was about to take action himself. Cyborg, knowing the battle was about to end, opened the communication channel. Hawkeye, if you hear this, rush to Earth and support Wonder Woman. Hawkgirl, if you hear this, please reply. Chapter 202, The Final Battle of Superman. Hawkeye, Cyborg called out several times on the comms channel, but still received no response. He glanced up at Superman, who understood and squinted his eyes, scanning the tower. Impressive. He managed to sneak in here. This stranger is getting more and more interesting. Naturally, Superman used his X-ray vision to spot the unconscious Hawkgirl, and also saw Leah, who had transformed into Wonder Woman and the released Flash and the other two. Superman, should we go and stop them? Cyborg asked. Wait until they're out. Don't start a fight inside the tower, Superman said, shaking his head. The fighting power of both sides was extraordinary. And if a fight broke out, it would inevitably affect the tower. The strategic significance of the Watchtower goes without saying. Fortunately, Superman let Leah and the others escape. Once outside, they could fight freely. Leah led the Flash through the tower's interior, using his X-ray vision to seamlessly avoid patrolling soldiers. Along the way, Shazam glanced around from time to time, and even he sensed something was amiss. This wasn't the way to the bridge, but to the escape pod. The escape pod is just up ahead. Make your way there. When Leah said this herself, the Flash finally couldn't help but ask, "You're not Diana, are you?" Ahem. "That's not important. The important thing is to escape first." Leah urged the three to flee while they were still undetected. Ray Palmer didn't want to stay in the watchtower for a moment. His Atom suit had been stolen, leaving him completely powerless. He had a newly developed suit on the lab, so he didn't want to risk retrieving it. "Diana. I mean, aren't you leaving with us?" Ray Palmer asked. Leah shook his head. "Leave me alone, let's go." Hearing Leah's words, the three decisively entered the escape pod. Leah waited for the three to leave before preparing to destroy the watchtower. "Aren't you leaving, or do you want to stay and continue doing something?" A deep voice sounded behind Leah over. Cyborg wasn't as calm as Superman. Allowing the enemy to infiltrate the watchtower was a dereliction of duty. He berated, "You're not Diana, who are you?" Seeing through his transformation, Leah was fortunately able to undo his transformation and return to his original form. "You can call me an Avenger, or you can call me the God of Law." As Leah spoke, lightning flashed from his hands, and he slammed them in all directions. Superman frowned slightly, then instantly unleashed his full power, accelerating to his maximum speed. With a boom of sound, Superman flew out, punching Leah. Superman suddenly burst into speed, and Leah moved with him, using his super speed and the speed force to dodge Superman's punch. Boom! Boom! Thunder exploded, piercing the watchtower with 2 holes. Cyborg, a couple of beats slower, also quickly took defensive measures. Superman, missing his punch, lunged at Leah. With a bang, he reached out and grabbed Leah's cape, crashing forward through the wall, carrying Leah with him into space. Superman saw Leah's intention and, no matter what, decided to move the battlefield away. Zzz. After being knocked away by Superman, Leah looked at the watchtower, his eyes instantly turning crimson. 2 parallel beams of blazing light knocked down on the tower. Superman was stunned, his face filled with disbelief. He had always believed that Leah, like Shazam and the others, had gained the power of the old gods. He had even speculated that Leah was a god himself. But to his surprise, Leah unleashed his heat vision. Superman was familiar with Kryptonian powers, this was heat vision. Facing the blazing beam, Cyborg's face darkened. The force of the impact was so great that it even caused the entire watchtower to shift slightly. "Asshole!" Superman was enraged. He reached out and slapped Leah between the eyes, effectively blocking his heat vision. Cyborg, beneath him, felt as if he had been pardoned. He fell to one knee, gasping for air. The shield his hands had transformed into was like a burning block of molten iron. Bang! 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 Leah's fists pounded Superman's abdomen, but his chest only rose and fell slightly. He looked at Leah with a faint smile. "You're stronger than a few days ago, but what good is that?" With that, Superman backhanded a fist, striking Leah in the face. Bang! An invisible shockwave spread, sending Leah flying backwards again. Even though he now possessed 27% Kryptonian blood, he was still far behind Superman. As he flew, Leah donned a life support mask, though he didn't need it in space. He needed it to pronounce the magic word for his transformation. God of Punishment, crash. Compared to lightning flashing in the sky on Earth, in space, massive thunder flashed, and a powerful force surged toward Leah. With a bang, Leah's entire body erupted in a brilliant silver glow. Superman followed closely, intent on hammering Leah further away. The farther from the watchtower, the better. However, the moment Leah transformed, his senses, reflexes, and speed soared to new heights. In terms of speed alone, combined with the added bonus of the speed force, he was poised to surpass even the top-tier golden legendary Superman. Thunder, under Superman's stern gaze, Leah's right fist, wrapped in the power of thunder, swung with all his might and speed. Boom! The 2 fists met in midair, and thunder exploded. Though both were sent flying backward, this time, Leah was unscathed, while Superman's fist was ruptured by the explosion. Before the blood had flowed, the wound had healed under the shining light. Seeing this, Leah couldn't help but sigh. How can I break Superman's health lock? Despite using the Ares Quest card as his main card, Leah's divine power increased several times over, and his godhood grew stronger, and his power regeneration rate doubled. But facing Superman, especially with his infinite regeneration and infinite health bar under the sunlight, was a real headache. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203, Hurting Each Other. Just as Lear was feeling a headache, Superman's attack arrived in an instant. In previous battles, Superman had experienced the might of Lear's divine thunder, but he also knew Lear's weakness, his low mana pool. After using his ultimate several times in a row, Lear's divine thunder would be depleted. Superman, while having low magic resistance, had a larger health bar, and under the sun's rays, he could regenerate infinitely. Comparing the strengths and weaknesses of both sides, Superman quickly formulated his own strategy, a head-on confrontation. He would fight to the death, even at the risk of injury, to destroy Lear's divine thunder. After all, a quick charge would be enough. Superman charged again, his cape rustling behind him. He twisted his body and delivered a powerful kick to Lear. Crackling. Another divine thunder explosion sent Lear flying backwards. Superman pursued him, letting the lightning slice through his suit and skin. He grabbed Lear's shoulder and unleashed a flurry of punches. Boom. 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 After enduring several blows, Lear shook his head. His injuries were healing at breakneck speed. Even the undigested, half-strength Superman potion lingering in his system was digesting at an accelerated rate. Clearly, even without sunlight, Lear could recover quickly. This was assuming the Superman potion hadn't been fully digested. If that's the case, then let's just go for it. Lear, enraged by Superman's blow, still had a full-strength Superman potion in hand, so he decided to give it a good beating first. With this thought in mind, Lear faced Superman and swung his hands fiercely. Crack. Boom. Countless bolts of lightning erupted, forming a blazing force field in space. Lear dodged Superman's attack with a swift movement. As Superman flew past, Lear reached out and grabbed his ankle. Superman's other leg swept across, and Lear raised his other hand. Despite the earth-shattering impact, he refused to let go. With a powerful tug, he pulled Superman toward him, raised his fist, laced with lightning, and brought it down with a fierce blow. Boom. Boom. Superman intentionally shifted the battlefield, and the two men streaked across the universe like meteors, crashing into Earth's atmosphere sky. Due to Lear's use of his thunder power, the ground beneath his feet was a pitch-black thunder cloud. As they passed through the thunder cloud, Lear noticed that Superman's recovery speed had slowed. Why is that? Are the clouds blocking the sun? Superman wouldn't lose his powers due to clouds or darkness. Lear had fought Clark in the original world many times in the dark. Back then, there was no sun, yet Clark still possessed powerful superpowers. Another thunder rumbled from the clouds, and a flash of light flashed through Lear's mind, and he suddenly understood. Power bank. Lear had once believed that moonlight refracted sunlight, and therefore exposure to it would also grant Superman strength. But upon closer examination, this idea wasn't entirely flawed. Recalling Fiora and Kara's shared experiences of sunbathing, Lear suddenly realized that Kryptonians were like power banks. When exposed to yellow sunlight, Kryptonian cells absorbed its radiation and stored the energy within them. It was like a fully charged power bank. Therefore, in the short term, unless exposed to red sunlight, they would still possess immense power even without it. In that instant, Lear's mind raced to the limit. Based on this principle, he immediately formulated the most rational plan. I know how to break your blood lock, Lear said to Superman with a smile, leaving him bewildered. The next second, Lear's divine power fully unleashed, his eyes blazing with a brilliant silver light. Crash! 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 A divine barrier, centered on Lear, enveloped an area a kilometer in diameter. This was the cloaking technique Ares, the god of war, had instructed Lear to use. Using divine power, he created a barrier that, by channeling and refracting light, blended into the surroundings. However, Lear had magnified this cloaking technique 1,000-fold, creating a sealed area. The barrier moved with Lear's movements. Superman was momentarily stunned by the creation of Lear's massive barrier, then his expression suddenly changed as he sensed the disappearance of the sunlight. Without the sun's energy, Superman's attritional tactics were no longer invincible. break his barrier. This thought crossed Superman's mind, and then his eyes suddenly turned crimson. Two blazing beams shot out, attempting to pierce the surrounding divine barrier. You wish, Leah roared, moving to block Superman's heat vision, absorbing the attack with his own body. Zzz zzz zzz. The scorching lasers instantly pierced Leah's skin. Fortunately, he possessed 27% Kryptonian blood, otherwise, facing Superman's heat vision, he would have been instantly vaporized. Superman's eyes continued to blaze with heat, and he thrust his fist towards Leah again. Get out! Leah raised his right hand to block Superman's punch. With his left hand, he grasped his shirt and yanked hard, sending divine lightning bolts charging his head, crashing directly into Superman's forehead. Bang! The impact on Superman's forehead felt like a normal person colliding their head with steel. Not only did the heat vision leave 2 burn marks on Leah's body, but his skull was also fractured, blood pouring out. Superman wasn't feeling well either. After all, Leah's head was wrapped in divine lightning bolts. The impact also cracked Superman's head. Both were healing, but Leah's healing speed was noticed faster than Superman's. Come on, Clark, let's hurt each other significantly. Leah, barefoot, was no match for Superman. He couldn't defeat Superman, but now both were shielded from sunlight. He could use his divine power or the Superman potion to dissipate his energy, but Superman clearly wasn't so reckless. Boom boom boom. At this moment, Leah transformed into a mad dog, his divine power unleashed, a blaze of silver lightning. He swung his fists at breakneck speed, exchanging blows with Superman. His hands burst with blood and flesh, and in some cases, the bone was visible. Superman's expression was extremely solemn. He had sustained numerous injuries from the fight. Although all of them had healed, if he continued to fight for a long time, his solar energy would eventually be depleted. So, Superman began to meticulously calculate his solar energy consumption, even ignoring minor wounds. The battle escalated again, with flashes of thunder and lightning, and 2 figures, one black and one red, constantly clashing. 10 minutes later, Superman's expression changed again and again. After throwing dozens of frantic punches, he moved, and the next moment, he soared into the air, about to fly out of the range of Leah's divine barrier. Regarding the update issue, let me talk about it again. Extra updates will be released on weekends, either Saturday or weekend, and there will be no fewer than 5 extra updates. Chapter 204, Weakness. By this point, both sides had been extremely exhausted, but Superman hadn't expected Leah to outlast them this time. According to Superman's calculations, Leah should have been exhausted by now. But far from showing any signs of exhaustion, he fought with increasing ferocity, a frenzy of ferocity. Swoosh! Superman soared vertically into the sky, covering 1,000 meters in an instant. Just as he was about to break through the divine barrier, Leah also moved. With his super speed and the amplification of the speed force, Leah, trailing a long trail of silver lightning, suddenly caught up. The 2 figures chased each other, but from an outsider's perspective, the divine barrier prevented them from seeing or hearing the battle in the sky. The divine barrier moved at high speed, shaking the very air wherever it passed. As Leah and Superman's battle of attrition intensified, the Flash and his companions arrived in rural Philadelphia, USA. For the Flash, he first went to Ray Palmer's laboratory to retrieve his newly developed Atom suit. Some weapon bugs haven't been resolved, but they don't affect their use. Wonder Woman, meanwhile, has been battling Ares for a long time, feeling incredibly frustrated. Ares, the god of war, is several times more powerful than he was in the first battle, and in this one, his strength has even reached a new level. Just then, Shazam, the Flash, and the Atom join the fray. They don't even bother to consider who Ares is. Shazam immediately supports Batman in fighting Black Adam. The Flash and the Atom assist Ares in containing Wonder Woman. With their arrival, the situation quickly becomes one-sided. Flash, you're courting death. Wonder Woman is distracted by the Flash's maneuvering foot. The Flash doesn't respond. At this point, there's nothing more to say. He circles the battlefield. The next moment, the Flash abruptly stopped, swung his right hand back, and then swung it with all his might. Crackling. Speed Force lightning, mingling with the Flash's swing, formed a bolt of lightning, blasting towards Diana. HMPH. Naive, Diana's speed reached its limit. She stretched her hands apart, colliding the protective silver bracelets with force, unleashing a burst of divine power. Buzz! Circles of divine power spread out, knocking Ares and the Atom back. Only the Speed Force paused, bolted briefly, yet continued to pierce through the layers, erupting towards Diana. The Speed Force is the fundamental source of speed in the universe. In terms of level, it's on par with the divine power of the gods at the Speed Force lightning, raising her divine shield to block it. Boom! Yellow lightning exploded, and Diana shifted back a short distance, defending herself. A golden rope flew out. Diana cast aside her shield and swung the lasso. Seizing the moment when the Flash paused, she suddenly wrapped the lasso around his feet. Ha! Diana exerted force, pulling the Flash towards her before he could even start running. Leaping into the air, Diana thundered towards the Flash was heard, and Ares rushed forward, colliding with Diana in midair, sending them both flying backwards. Flash, Wonder Woman's weakness is this rope. Ares knew his sister's weakness, and now that he had it out, he naturally wanted to exploit it. The Flash, lying on the ground, was stunned for a moment, but then he quickly reacted. Yellow lightning flashed again, and he untied the golden rope from his feet, charging towards Diana. Knowing what the other party was planning, Diana naturally wouldn't let the Flash snatch the lasso. She tugged at the rope with all her might. While the Flash possessed superpowers, his strength was no match for Diana's. Diana pulled with all her might, sending the Flash flying again, only to be sent flying by a powerful sidekick. Idiot, can't you just run in circles? Run, Ares shouted at the Flash in frustration, then charged forward with an all-out attack, pinning Diana down and giving the Flash an opening. The Atom also joined the fray, his weapon systems operating at full capacity. Barry, you can do this. Run, Barry, run. Hearing the familiar words, the Flash felt transported back to the days of fighting alongside his teammates. Watching the figures fighting around him, for some reason, his fighting spirit was ignited. Crash! Crash! The Speed Force's lightning suddenly lit up, and Barry's speed soared to its limit. He had sped off for a great distance before the sound of a sonic boom was heard. To prevent the opponent from snatching the lasso, Diana sheathed it. However, the Injustice Universe's Diana lacks storage equipment. She simply hung the lasso from her waist. The Flash flashed by like a fleeting shadow, employing a few deceptive feints to confuse the opponent. With the assistance of Ares and the Atom, the Flash sprinted at breakneck speed, his eyes fixed on Diana's. Lightning flashed, gliding past the opponent's blind spot. In the speed world, the Flash reached for the lasso. At that moment, Diana instinctively stepped back and elbowed her backward. The Flash quickly hunched over, swiftly looping one end of the rope around Diana's slender waist, while he grabbed the other end and sped away. Success. Howiew, wow, wow. A dazzling display of conventional lightning circles followed, and by the time the Flash stopped, Diana was securely bound. Asshole. Let me go, Diana screamed, struggling desperately, but she was powerless. Once bound by the lasso, Diana would lose her divine powers and become immortal. Batman, we're done, the Flash, clutching the lasso tightly, shouted towards Batman. On the other side, Shazam took the lead, locked in a fierce battle with Black Adam. Batman, piloting Nightcrawler 4.0, and Killer Frost, searched for an opportunity to stun Black Adam. With the combined efforts of the three, Black Adam was helplessly on the defensive, his temper shattered. Seeing Wonder Woman subdued, Black Adam cursed inwardly, blasted Shazam with a magical lightning bolt, and fled without a backward glance. I'll chase him. Keep an eye on Wonder Woman, Shazam said to Batman and the others, chasing Black Adam at full speed. Batman didn't want to give up such a good opportunity, but Black Adam was determined to escape, and with his Nightcrawler's speed, he couldn't catch up, so he had to give up. The only one present who could fly and catch up was Ares, the god of war. But the ancient god completely ignored Black Adam's intentions. In his eyes, a lowly fellow like Black Adam was unworthy of mention, and there was no sense of accomplishment in mocking Wonder Woman. Diana, have you ever considered that the peace achieved through war today is truly peace? Ares asked, folding his arms and looking at Diana with a smug look on his face. Chapter 205, If you can't win, take medicine. You think you've won? Ridiculous. Kal will kill you one by one. Diana was truly furious. Once, she represented all that was good in time, defeating Ares, the god of war who had wreaked havoc on it. All these years later, Ares arrogantly considered himself the righteous and punished her. Ridiculous. Batman leaped from Nightcrawler and approached Wonder Woman. Superman won't kill anyone anymore. He's struggling himself right now. What? Nonsense. Diana's first reaction was fury. In her heart, Superman was invincible. No one could belittle him like that. Can the Avengers defeat Superman? The Flash asked, addressing the doubts of many present. While they knew that the Wonder Woman Batman who had rescued them was Leah, they were unsure about the Superman potion. I gave him the Superman potion. With his abilities, he can easily take on Superman, explained, and understood everyone. Flash thought of Alfred. Batman, have you told the Avengers about the side effects of the potion? Yes, and then he drank half a dose of the Superman potion in one gulp. After a brief loss of control over his strength, he adapted to Superman's powers, Batman explained. Diana's expression was impassive and silent. Batman looked at the lasso of truth and a smile crossed his lips. Batman of Injustice had countermeasures for each superhero. He knew Wonder Woman's weakness was the lasso of truth, but he struggled to obtain it. Now that Wonder Woman was captured and the lasso of truth was in his possession, Batman finally began to plan his plan. Flash, come with us and imprison Diana. Ares, are you going to help the Avengers? Ares shook his head. I don't want to go. Don't worry, the Avengers can handle it. Ares felt no pressure dealing with Diana, but he still didn't want to be tortured by Superman. Elsewhere, Superman was covered in wounds, scalding blood gushing out, but he had no time to care. Where's your thunderbolt? Come again. Superman's rage seethed, his eyes fixed on Leah's hands, his cape tattered and tattered. Seeing you in such a miserable state, I can't bear to bully you. The silver glow around Leah dimmed considerably. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that his divine power was greatly depleted, but Leah would not admit to exhaustion, at least not verbally. Fortunately, thanks to the God of War card, Leah's divine power regenerated several times faster than before. He needed time to recover, otherwise he wouldn't even be able to maintain his divine barrier. Before he could finish his words, Leah's fist, coated in a faint layer of lightning, banged, and struck. Superman took a deep breath. His solar energy was depleted, but he wasn't afraid of Leah. After all, he had experienced adversity before. To think he could defeat him with just this was simply a dream. The next moment, Superman vanished. The moment he vanished, Leah's eyes darted wildly, finally locking onto a single direction, a frenzied look flickering in them. Boom. Boom. Fighting solely with physical strength, Leah was no match for Superman. Less than a minute into the fight, Leah's arm exploded, blood gushing out, revealing the bones. Even so, he refused to retreat. Superman's hands were also covered in blood. Even the Man of Steel bleeds sometimes. Both sides retreated 10 meters, staring at each other from a distance. Taking advantage of this moment to catch their breath, Leah pulled a green pill from his pocket and tossed it into his mouth without a second thought. That pill, Superman frowned, suddenly sensing a foreboding premonition, and quickly flew over to intervene. But Leah didn't give Superman a chance to stop him. He'd already eaten by the time he made his move. Superman, come on, let's continue. Leah gritted his teeth, his voice hoarse, as if someone was choking him. After consuming the full concentration of Superman potion, Leah felt as if a flame had burned within him. Instantly, countless energies surged through his limbs, causing his body to tremble wildly. What did you eat? Superman instantly appeared in front of Leah, aiming for his stomach, intending to punch him to dislodge the contents. Bang! The blow came down, but Leah, with a single hand, blocked Superman's blow. How could it be? You ate. I ate Superman potion, Leah roared, clenching his other hand into a fist and smashing it into Superman's abdomen. With a thud, Superman's body arched high, like a mantis shrimp, his eyes staring at Leah in disbelief. This force. For the first time in their fight, Superman had been hurt by brute force. And it hurt badly. You're killing yourself. You're crazy. Superman was furious. Using a Kryptonian-developed drug against him wasn't just a provocation, it was an insult. Bang! 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 The two exchanged punches again, and for the first time ever, Leah crushed Superman. The Superman potion continued to exert its power within Leah, providing him with a constant supply of energy like a sun. Although he had no time to check the system data, Leah could still feel it. After consuming the Superman potion, his Kryptonian bloodline surpassed the 30-point mark. Under the impact of this force, Leah's injured arms healed rapidly. The newly healed bone was stronger, and the flesh and skin were even more indestructible. Bang! Superman's fist crashed into Leah's arm, with a clanging sound of metal. Feeling the tingling sensation in his fist, Superman's face darkened, and he even began to doubt who truly was the Man of Steel. Leah backhanded a punch, striking Superman in the face, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. First, he blocked the sun's energy, breaking Superman's health lock. Then, he used his divine power to frantically drain Superman's energy. Both sides were fighting at this point, exhausting themselves immensely. But at this very moment, Leah took the Superman potion. He was restored to full health. Moreover, the feeling of being blasted by energy was constantly being digested and absorbed during the battle with Superman. This is the rhythm. Leah's excitement grew as the fight grew, the silver light in his eyes gleaming with a fierce crimson. After a brief clash, Superman gradually shifted from fighting to defending. Final blow. Leah, fighting with increasing ferocity, raised his hands, channeling his newly restored divine power into thunder, and hurled it fiercely. The blazing lightning pierced the sky like a spear. A divine lightning spear. Clang. With a strike, Leah targeted Superman's heart, and the lightning spear pierced through him, breaking through Superman's defenses and piercing his heart. Blood gushed out, and Superman clutched his chest, gasping for air. With the accumulated injuries, the lightning was spear finally the straw that broke the camel's back. Superman's body staggered a few times, and suddenly fell from the air. Even with his heart pierced, Superman was still alive and could even recover. However, the recovery from this injury would also deplete most of his energy. Chapter 206, God on Earth. It's over. Leah stepped forward and grabbed Superman by the collar. Superman struggled a few times, but couldn't break free. The divine barrier was still in place, otherwise, Superman would be fully restored the moment he came into contact with sunlight. The system hadn't responded yet. It was understandable. Leah still needed the divine barrier to maintain his current state, so the system certainly wouldn't have deemed him mission accomplished. 30% optimized Kryptonian genes flew towards the Philadelphia Batcave. The divine barrier had been reduced to 3 meters by Leah. As he flew into the Batcave, Presence sensed someone entering. As Leah enveloped Batman and his companions, Flash and Atom were the first to notice. What the heck, you? What could possibly be behind me? We've all been through a lot. Can you just stay calm? What film? Batman, frightened at the sight of Superman behind him, immediately pulled out an energy gun. Ares, standing nearby, reached out and pinned Batman's spear down. Calm down. Calm down. We've all been through a lot. We need to stay calm. As he spoke, Ares calmly sheathed his Ares sword. Bruce, you've made a big mistake. Upon seeing Batman and the others, Superman struggled desperately, but Leah's grip was firm, making him impossible to break free. God, I can't believe you actually beat Superman. The Flash covered his mouth, feeling as if he were in a dream even after witnessing it himself. Ares, however, glanced at the divine barrier surrounding him and nodded in approval. Not bad, not bad. Using a divine barrier to block out the sunlight is a very good idea. In Ares' view, Leah had provided him with a plan for defeating Superman. Batman, overcome with emotion, spoke eagerly, Avengers, follow me. I've prepared a Red Sun prison for Superman. Bat, have you ever considered that killing Superman is the perfect solution? Leah suggested. Flash and the others exchanged bewildered glances. It would be a lie to say they hadn't considered this, considering how many of their friends had died at Superman's hands. Batman was silent for a moment, then replied calmly, he's my friend. Superman smiled wistfully at Batman's response. Friend, such a distant word. Follow me. Batman suddenly stepped forward. The Red Sun prison wasn't located here. Fortunately, Leah's divine power regenerated incredibly quickly, and the transport went smoothly. 100 meters beneath the American no man's land, there lay a secret base, radiating a perpetual red glow. It was a red glow so convincing it could be mistaken for sunlight. The moment Leah entered the prison, he felt his body sink. The system had integrated optimized Kryptonian genes into him, allowing him to adapt to a wider range of environments. Unless Leah had a Superman card in his primary card slot, the Red Sun and Kryptonite would have little effect on him. Leave it to me now. Batman, under the glow of the Red Sun, prepared to personally escort Superman. Superman, naturally, refused to surrender. He attempted to resist Batman's grasp, but was beaten to a pulp by 2 of Batman's savage punches. Bat's revenge, tisk, 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 tisk. There's a saying, if you don't explode in silence, you'll become distorted in silence. Bat's been pent up for years, driving him crazy, Leah whispered to the Flash and the others around him. The Flash and the others nodded in agreement. Wonder Woman was imprisoned by Batman in another prison. Batman used the lasso of truth to create a collar that he placed around Wonder Woman's neck. She would receive a powerful electric shock. What the hell? Is Batman even that good at this? Leah gasped. After all, Batman was the ultimate villain. Sensing the conversation had strayed, the Atom quickly brought it back, asking, "Don't forget, there's also Cyborg, Hawkgirl, and Green Lantern. They'll definitely do whatever it takes to rescue Superman and Wonder Woman. Just them? Tell Batman to wait for me back in the Philadelphia Batcave." Leah uttered this before flying out of the Red Sun prison. Complete the side quest, Blackened Superman. Reward: 30% Kryptonian gene optimization. The system's voice chimed, and Leah instantly felt a surge of power within him. Within the interface, his Kryptonian bloodline percentage also increased to 65%. Initially, Leah had only 22%, 35%. Adding the system's latest 30% bonus, he now had a total of 65%. This enhanced gene is embedded in Leah's genes, not just a temporary, borrowed gift. This means that even if Leah were to travel to a world without Superman, he would still be able to exert superhuman powers. Hey, there's a box with instructions. The maximum Kryptonian gene fusion rate is 70%. Above this percentage, the host will become a Kryptonian. It's recommended that the host fuse different genes. Leah quickly understood the system's meaning. Simply put, 70% Kryptonian genes were sufficient. By fusing with other dominant races, such as the Protoss, Leah would become even more versatile. After adapting to his increased strength, Leah suddenly accelerated. With a sonic boom, his figure soared into the sky at breakneck speed, arriving in the universe in an instant. In the Watchtower, Cyborg was truly repairing the damage. He had also awakened Hawkgirl. Countless distress signals were coming in from the ground forces. Superman's army was being decimated by the rebels, and Earth was in chaos. Please. Why is Green Lantern on Planet Oa at this hour? Superman and Wonder Woman can't be contacted. Hawkgirl frantically sent a message to the distant planet Oa, but halfway through, she suddenly realized that the ultra-long-range communication satellite had lost connection. What's going on? Hawkgirl, bewildered, quickly mobilized other satellites to investigate, but soon, the second satellite also lost contact. A third, a fourth. In less than a minute, all of the Justice League's satellites had lost contact. In the final satellite feed, Hawkgirl saw a massive fist. Boom. A second later, the Watchtower shook with a mighty tremor and began to plummet, falling toward Earth like a meteor. Cyborg, what's going on? Hawkgirl shouted into the comms. It's that intruder. We can't stop him. The Watchtower is finished. Cyborg's voice filled the comms. Hawkgirl's face paled. Cyborg had told her that Superman had personally taken action against the Stranger in Black. But now, Superman had lost contact, and the Stranger in Black had appeared in the Watchtower. A terrifying thought flashed through Hawkgirl's mind, but she shook her head in disbelief. Could it be that Superman, he's been defeated? How could that be possible? Chapter 207, Kill the Flash. The Watchtower plummeted into the atmosphere at breakneck speed. The scorching heat from the air friction caused the already severely damaged spacecraft to burn even more erratically. Boom. At the final moment of the fall, Cyborg pulled Hawkgirl out, and explosions rumbled below, sending up a raging fire. Leah calmly descended from the sky, hovering in front of Cyborg and Hawkgirl. Superman has been defeated by me. Surrender. Although they had already suspected it, Cyborg and Hawkgirl couldn't believe it when they heard Leah say it herself. Superman, whom they saw as invincible, had actually lost to an unknown junior. How did you do it? Judging from the data from your first fight with Superman, you should be no match for him, even if you had kryptonite, Cyborg questioned with a cold face. Leah smiled. Sometimes, you can't just trust data. Hawkgirl, standing nearby, looked grim. Seeing Leah, she recalled the moment on the spaceship. She was about to ask if he was Wonder Woman, but in the end, she didn't have the nerve to ask. Leah was actually even more troubled than she was. If Hawkgirl had asked, Leah would have been ready to kill her. What a dark history. Stranger, what are you going to do with us? Cyborg had witnessed Leah's battle with Superman and knew he was no match for him. Even with Hawkgirl, he still stood no chance. "Do you remember the Batman virus implanted in you?" Leah asked. Cyborg nodded. How could he have forgotten? After Superman and Batman split, Cyborg and Batman had clashed. At that time, Batman had directly activated a virus that shut down Cyborg's computer. It was later revealed that it was the virus Batman had implanted on Cyborg on his first day. That's good to know. Although you later removed the virus, unfortunately, who used Kryptonian technology to create it, still has some residual files on your system. Batman wants him to upgrade the virus, as he's been researching it for years. Kryptonian technology is an inexhaustible treasure trove for Earth, but Superman simply doesn't enjoy research. Otherwise, DC Comics might have to change their style. Of course, Superman doesn't enjoy scientific research, but some do, like Batman. Especially after recognizing the dangers of this world, Batman devoted himself to technological research, ultimately achieving many extraordinary results. Batman wants to control me? Now that Superman's defeated, Batman is going to rule the world. Cyborg seemed very excited. After all, no one wants to be controlled by others. Leah shrugged. Talk to Batman about this. I'm not a subordinate. Whether to continue the resistance or surrender is up to you. With that, Leah left without a glance, leaving Cyborg and Hawkgirl standing there, confused. He said he won't help Batman. So if we bring in Green Lantern and his Green Lantern Corps, do we have a chance of winning? Hawkgirl asked, touching Cyborg's arm. Cyborg was silent for a moment, then shook his head. After all these years, I'm tired of fighting, especially fighting with my friends. Cyborg and his companions had long considered Superman too extreme, but precisely because of his extreme nature, they dared not say anything and Batman could only do as Superman told them. Now that Superman's regime had been overthrown, Cyborg breathed a sigh of relief. Let's go talk to Breath. As long as Batman doesn't want to be the next Superman, surrender isn't impossible. Cyborg started the engine and flew towards Leah. Hawkgirl followed. Cyborg, don't you think this might be a trap set by the Man in Black and Batman? Even Superman is no match for the Man in Black. Do you think he needs to resort to some kind of scheming to deal with us? Before he finished speaking, Cyborg accelerated sharply. That day, Captain Cold and his prisoners engaged in a fierce battle with Superman's Corps. Eventually, the Atom and the Flash joined the fray. A flash of lightning swept across the city, and the Legion of Supermen vanished from their weapons. Deprived of their weapons, the Superman's army, faced with a heavily armed resistance, instantly surrendered. Superman has been defeated. This world doesn't need a god, Captain Cold roared, standing on the streets of Central City, his Sub-Zero rifle held high as President of the United States, and his companion, Heatwave Mick, strongly agreed. However, Captain Cold, Snart, retorted, let me be President of the United States? No, no, no. Our goal isn't world domination. Our goal is money and killing the Flash. Snart, the Flash is right up ahead, calming the people. Give the order, and we'll go and finish him off. Heatwave Mick, holding his Heatwave rifle, shouted to his men. Kill the Flash, kill the Flash. Mick confused fellow rebels roared in unison. The people on the streets of Central City were, but after defeating the Legion of Superman, was filled with excitement, needing to vent their pent-up fear and despair. More and more people joined the roar. Kill the Flash. Most people didn't understand why they were shouting, but since everyone weren't serious about killing the Flash anyway, they just joined in. The Flash was still trying to calm the crowd when he heard the entire street next door shouting something. His face darkened. What have I done? Why is trying to kill me? Across the vast crowd, the Flash spotted Captain Cold and Heatwave, gazing at him with smugness. He smiled knowingly, then vanished with a swish. Everyone can't afford to offend you, so I'm going to run away. Returning to the Batcave, the Flash all gathered, including Cyborg and Hawkgirl. Most of his abilities will be disabled, and his will be monitored 24/7. If he shows any unusual behavior, I can remotely terminate his systems, Batman explained upon seeing Flash return, then turned to Hawkgirl and continued, Hawkeye will be wearing a color that limits her abilities. Along with Cyborg, her movements will be restricted to Central City. If she leaves Central City, she will be wanted as a criminal. This was the lightest punishment Batman could offer them. Okay, it's settled. Flash, take me back. Leah had completed her movement system mission, and it was time to go home. Shazam was reluctant to leave. After all, he was simple-minded and had come to consider Leah a good friend. Don't leave so quickly. Batman is holding a celebration tonight to celebrate defeating Superman and retaking Wayne Enterprises, so you have money again. Leah's first reaction was that Batman was finally rich again. Batman, for once, smiled. Yes, stay for a drink. It's all thanks to you that Superman was defeated. That evening, everyone celebrated at the Voodoo Bar. At Batman's urging, Leah challenged herself to a 1,000-fold concentration of industrial alcohol. After 2 bottles, Leah began to feel excited. Especially when Harley Quinn opened her wide mouth, took a little ice cream between her fingers, and sucked it. The scene was simply. After the party, Harley Quinn and Killer Frost showed up uninvited in Leah's bedroom. One was passionate, the other cold. Ice and fire, 2 worlds apart. A whole night of madness. But it was just a night of madness. Chapter 208, Timequake. After a night of revelry, the first rays of morning sunlight streamed into the loft of the Voodoo Bar. Leah's eyelids fluttered, and she slowly sat up in bed. Beneath the covers, 2 warm bodies clung to Leah, each holding her tightly. Harley Quinn and Killer Frost. Leah knew the battle last night had been incredibly intense, and the 2 women were truly exhausted. As she left, she found Harley and Killer Frost, embracing each other, having fallen asleep in each other's arms. Heading to the Advanced Technology Laboratory, Barry was gone. He had been the first to return home yesterday, dragged home by his wife. He still hadn't appeared, so it went without saying what he was up to. After waiting for about half an hour, a flash of lightning flashed, and Barry Allen appeared in the Advanced Technology Laboratory's command room, 2 cups of coffee in hand. I'm sorry, Leah. I slept late last night and kept you waiting. Leah glanced at Barry. Freed from Superman's reign, Barry looked more radiant than ever. His stubble had been trimmed, and he was dressed in smart clothes, looking energetic. It's okay, I just got here too, Chief Allen, Leah said to Barry with a smile. After Superman's regime was overthrown by the rebels yesterday, all functional departments of the United States were operational again. The Congress was reorganized overnight and a series of appointments were issued. The former Central City Police Chief retired, and Barry was promoted to Chief Allen of the Central City Police Department. Don't make fun of me. I just want to spend more time at home with Iris. You know, she's been through a lot these past few years. Leah paused in understanding. At that moment, the TV on the wall interrupted with a news report that the United States Congress appointed had former President O'Connor as interim president. The next presidential election would be held next month. Then the list of candidates was announced. Leah immediately spotted a familiar name, Mick Rory. Captain Cold's henchman, a fool who only knows how to eat and drink all day. Holy crap. Mick's running for president of the United States. If this idiot becomes president of the United States, won't America be in trouble? Can you imagine how the world would be run by someone who only knows how to stuff hot dogs and solve problems by holding a flaming gun and pulling the trigger? If he becomes president, what kind of world would he rule? This idiot must have been fooled. But compared to Mick, I prefer the 5th candidate, Trump. Hearing the name Trump, Leah was slightly stunned, then looked at the 5th candidate. At first, he didn't notice, but this person, with his flowing hair and unruly face, was clearly a U.S. president from Sichuan, China in a previous life. However, this world's president had nothing to do with Leah. He was more concerned with his own universe. Barry, I should go back. Send me back to my own universe. Have you said goodbye to Bruce and the others? Leah shook her head. I said goodbye yesterday. Honestly, I don't like farewells. Rather than a group of people seeing me off, I'd rather come quietly and leave quietly. Your idea is unique. Barry said no more. He finished his breakfast at the speed of light, then put on his flash suit and went with Leah to the basement where the particle collision took place. I'll adjust the spacetime ripple data, and then you follow me. When I open the spacetime tunnel, I'll throw you in. I won't go through this time. Leah, you're a mature speedster. You should learn to travel through time and space on your own, but remember, once you enter the spacetime tunnel, don't look at your surroundings. Maintain a constant speed. And be careful of time tremors. Every spacetime tunnel has time tremors. Just avoid them. Barry spoke a lot, especially about time tremors. A time tremor is a tremor in time and space that occurs at a specific point in time. Traveling through time and space can cause tremors, as can breaking through spatial barriers. However, these tremors are relatively minor and will have no impact if kept at a distance. Leah memorized everything he needed to know. They both started running, then silently counted to 3, 2, 1, accelerating simultaneously. Crash! Crash! Two figures sprinted, trailing long trails of lightning behind them, as they raced around the basement at breakneck speed. Even though Leah had the flash card in the main card slot, adding to the boost to his own speed, he was still significantly slower than the Flash. Crash! As they continued running, the Flash's speed grew faster and faster. With a series of bangs, Barry broke the sound barrier several times. Mach 27. Mach 28. Mach 29. Mach 30. At Mach 30, the Speed Force's energy had accumulated to a critical level. With a loud bang, it exploded, opening a highly unstable corridor in the vast basement. Leah, speed up, Barry roared into the communicator, his form suddenly accelerating. Mach 35. Mach 40. Leah gritted his teeth, unleashing his full strength, finally reaching the critical speed limit. The next second, Barry had sprinted around and appeared behind Leah ground, rolling dozens of meters. Too hard. My hand's bones are shattered, Barry shook his limp arm. He felt Leah's body was much stronger than before. Pushing a body of steel at this speed was like ramming into a speeding truck. When he looked at the space-time tunnel again, it had closed. See you again, my friend from another universe. Barry stood up, looking up into the air and smiling. Inside the space-time tunnel, Leah ran at a steady pace, the space-time ripple recorder on his waist guiding him towards his own universe. Needless to say, Leah ignored the chaotic surroundings, focusing solely on his destination. At that moment, the walls of the tunnel began to shake violently. According to Barry from the Injustice universe, this was a timequake. Holy shit. Why is there a timequake in my universe? Leah steadied his breath and continued running forward, feeling a surge of anxiety. Suddenly, a familiar figure flashed by, and the two met unexpectedly in the corridor. Barry Allen. Leah gritted his teeth. The person running towards him was none other than his own universe's Flash, Barry Allen. His own Barry's expression was serious, and he ran forward with all his might. When he saw Leah, he froze. Although Leah wanted to stop and ask what was going on, stopping in the space-time corridor was strictly prohibited, let alone turning around. The two could only pass each other with eyes wide open. Chapter 209, Marvel Next Door? The moment Leah and Barry passed each other, the space-time tunnel trembled with a force comparable to an 8.0 magnitude earthquake. Boom! With the exit just ahead, Leah felt as if she were caught in a raging wave, the world spinning around her. Suddenly, the timeline shifted, and the exit ahead flickered a few times. Just as these flickers, the tunnel beneath Leah's feet surged with immense force, like a raging wave. The tunnel collapsed, and Leah instantly fell into the vortex of space and time. In an instant, countless chaotic images appeared and disappeared around her, like a fleeting scene, before shattering with a loud bang. Elsewhere, Barry Allen, the Flash of Leah's universe, also realized the gravity of the situation. He and Leah had met in the same space-time tunnel. The chances of this happening were extremely small, truly extremely small, but it happened today, and his side of the tunnel began to collapse as well. Barry didn't care where Leah was. He quickly followed the Speed Force's guidance and rushed out of the tunnel. Back on the streets of Central City, Barry saw the scene he had seen the night before. As he ran, he saw another version of himself. He stopped abruptly, realizing he was experiencing the same scene as yesterday. The day before, a superpowered criminal, the Weather Wizard, had appeared in Central City. The Flash, Barry Allen, was helpless. Harrison Wells suggested that Barry run along the coastline, using his super speed to create a wall of air to block the tsunami's attack. Barry did so, carrying the safety of Central City on his shoulders, and for the first time in history, he reached Mach 30. He then accidentally traveled through time. Did I travel through time? Barry relived everything he had experienced yesterday, the same scene, the same case, and the same text message from Diana asking about the time tunnel. It's over, it's over. Diana is far more terrifying than the Weather Wizard. If she finds out I accidentally sent Leah into the time-space vortex, she'll kill me. Barry shuddered at the thought of an enraged Linus. Hurry, defeat the Weather Wizard, prevent David from being killed, prevent Joe from being kidnapped, and then find Leah. Barry knew that this would disrupt the original course of time, But he didn't care. He'd experienced this before and knew exactly what the weather wizard would do and when. With advanced preparation, he could capture him by surprise. "Leah, please don't be in any trouble," Barry prayed inwardly. Leah spun for a long time in the time-space vortex, as if she were passing through billions of parallel universes. Boom. Another series of time earthquakes. Time earthquakes were a very common phenomenon in the time-space vortex. Leah recalled the advice given by the Flash from the Injustice universe: once trapped in the time-space vortex, find the weakest point and break out. He tried to calm himself, scanning the vortex. Watching the walls surge and heave violently, Leah's eyes lit up. God of punishment. Leah's divine power erupted, his eyes turning silver-white. He focused all his power on a single point, blasting through the space-time tunnel. A highly unstable tunnel appeared before him. Without hesitation, Leah increased his speed to the limit, charging into the tunnel on the vortex's barrier. It felt like falling from a height of tens of thousands of meters. Ever since learning to fly, Leah had never felt such an intense sense of weightlessness. Time slipped by, perhaps hours, perhaps days, perhaps even a few. Finally, a flash of light appeared ahead. Boom, boom, boom. Leah burst out from the light, surrounded by a basement that looked like a military base, but overhead, a dark blue mass of energy emanated from intense space-time fluctuations. But Leah was in no mood to pay attention to his surroundings, just as he had before when traveling through the universe. Once again, Leah felt the entire world shake. His breathing suddenly stopped for 2 seconds, and a familiar feeling of weakness washed over him. Huff, huff, huff. Gasping for breath, Leah felt himself gradually adapting to this world. Seeing no one around, he quickly checked the system interface. All the character cards had turned a dark gray, meaning this world was neither his own nor the Injustice universe. He had fallen into an unfamiliar world. Fortunately, 65% of his optimized Kryptonian genes were still there, allowing his godhood to draw power from the source of this world's magic. Where is this? Leah still felt dizzy, but he quickly realized it wasn't because he hadn't adapted to this world, but rather that there was a real earthquake. At least, it looked like it was about to collapse. He walked out of the basement. Several bodies lay scattered on the ground, their uniforms emblazoned with an eagle logo. SHIELD. Oh my god, what is this? Just as Leah stared at the uniform logo with a look of fascination, a bald man in a large black trench coat, one eye patched, stumbled through the doorway. Loki's taken the Tesseract. Hill, stop them, the bald black man shouted into the intercom. Suddenly, he froze, his head mechanically turning in Leah's direction. Just then, Leah glanced his way. Their eyes met. Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Memories of Leah's past life surfaced, and he instantly recognized the man before him. Did I run off to Marvel Studios next door? But Director Fury wasn't as calm as Leah. Loki's arrival and the cube was one thing, but why did a stranger suddenly appear? This was S.H.I.E.L.D's top-secret cube research base, off-limits to outsiders. And considering the current emergency, Director Fury, without a second thought, drew his sidearm and fired. What the hell? You? Who are you? Are you from Asgard too? Director Fury glared with his single eye, his expression close to tears. I'm not your enemy, Director Fury, but if this happens a second time, I'll settle this account as well. This place is about to collapse, let's get out. Leah had a rough idea of what was going on. Based on Director Fury's recent communication, this was supposed to be the plot of Avengers 1. I originally intended to split this book into 2 parts, but blindly pursuing a single plot wasn't a good idea, so I introduced the Injustice universe early on. Since another universe has appeared, I might as well take a stroll next door to Marvel. Next volume, Marvel. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210, First Day at Marvel. The energy in the air intensified, and cracks appeared on the roof of S.H.I.E.L.D's cube research base. Who are you? Director Fury demanded, lowering his pistol. This world was already chaotic enough. Now the evil god Loki had not only stolen the Tesseract, but also used it to control Hawkeye Barton and Scientist Eric. Now, a stranger in a black battlesuit had suddenly appeared. And what's more, This stranger was invulnerable. Leah smiled at Director Fury, then looked up at the base's roof. Suddenly, he flew out, pierced through it, and disappeared without a trace. Milichet, seeing the base already on the verge of collapse, now pierced by another hole, Director Fury cursed and, ignoring his leg injury, desperately fled. Elsewhere, Leah soared for a long time, looking out ahead, a city ablaze with lights in this world. Leah's universe, it's called Gotham City. Or rather, Gotham by day is New York, and New York by night is Gotham. Although, by definition, it's the same American city, Leah feels incredibly unfamiliar, unsure of where to go. It seems the energy from the cosmic cube has caused a tremor in space-time, bringing me to this world, Leah wondered. Could the cosmic cube help me return to my own universe? The core of the cosmic cube is actually the Space Stone, one of the 6 Infinity Stones. Perhaps, with the power of the Space Stone, he could reopen the space-time corridor. Opening the space-time corridor isn't the problem, the real challenge lies in finding the location of one's own universe within the boundless universe. It's like searching for a specific drop of water in the ocean, without a clear path, it's a fantasy. With this thought, Leo unsheathed an electronic device from his waist. It was the device that recorded the ripples in his universe. However, during their brush with the Flash, the device had been affected by the turbulence in spacetime and was now malfunctioning. Forget it, let's find a place to stay. Once S.H.I.E.L.D. finishes today's business, they'll probably come looking for me. Leah hadn't even met that bald guy, but even if they hadn't, given S.H.I.E.L.D.'s nature, they would definitely find him and come knocking. Then, if they could find a way to repair the time-space signaler, Leah could use the Space Stone to open a time tunnel and return to his own world. Of course, upon returning to his own world, Leah's first act would be to give Barry Allen a good beating. That's it. Meanwhile, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Cube research base collapsed. A large number of agents, including Hill, were trapped underneath, and the interception force led by Coulson was easily defeated by Loki. After escaping, S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Nick Fury immediately inquired about the current situation. "Coulson, how's the situation over there?" Agent Coulson's voice quickly rang through the communicator. "Director Fury, the cube has been stolen by Loki. There have been casualties, but fortunately, important equipment and data have been transported out." "Hill, how's your situation over there, sir?" "Many are buried underground. I don't know how many survivors there are. Don't worry, help will arrive soon," Director Fury reassured Agent Hill, then switched to the S.H.I.E.L.D. channel and issued an order. "Issue a general order. All agents search for Loki. Coulson, return to base. This is a level 7 incident. From now on, the war has begun. What should we do?" Coulson awaited the next order. Director Fury's gaze was firm, and he spoke in a deep voice. "We need help." Aware of the many unknown threats posed by this world, Nick Fury envisioned forming a special team, a group of individuals with extraordinary abilities. He hoped that one day, facing a powerful enemy, this team could unite and win a war and defeat an enemy that ordinary people could not. Loki's invasion of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the theft of the Tesseract made Director Fury realize that this moment had arrived. That night, Black Widow, an agent on a mission in Russia, was recalled. Coulson traveled to Stark Tower to convince Iron Man, Tony Stark, to help them deal with the impending crisis. There was also the incognito nuclear physicist, Bruce Banner. Of course, mostly the monster within Bruce Banner, the Hulk. And then there was Captain America, Steve Rogers, who had just emerged from his icy state and was still undergoing adaptation training. As the rising sun rose over the horizon, it seemed as if a new chapter had begun. Lee, who had robbed a gang the previous night, was enjoying brunch at an upscale restaurant, eagerly awaiting the arrival of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. At noon, a brunette in a tight leather jacket entered Lee's cubicle. She smiled charmingly at him. "Sir, would you mind having lunch together?" With that, she gracefully sat down across from him, leaning forward slightly, revealing a generous expansion of her white breasts. Lee cut a piece of beef, shoved it into his mouth with a fork, and glanced up at the newcomer. He was familiar with this woman. He'd seen her countless times in movies, but it had to be said that this world's Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, was more far charming and alluring than her film counterpart. "Fury must have asked you to come, S.H.I.E.L.D. Your job as an agent isn't easy. You have to wear a tight waitress dress with a gun tucked into your waistband. And when you're surveilling a target, look naturally. Every few seconds you glance at me like a thief. Who are you? Where are you from?" Black Widow's expression changed, and she asked, fixing Leah with a fixed gaze. Leah, I'm from another universe. Leah continued to enjoy her steak. Hearing this, Black Widow didn't dismiss Leah as crazy. After all, Thor and Loki had previously descended on Earth, and there was also the Asgardian weapon, the Destroyer, from Asgard. After all those experiences, the people of this world weren't as puzzling about aliens as they'd imagined. Add to that the intelligence she'd gathered from Director Fury. Yesterday, Leah appeared out of thin air under the energy vortex of the cosmic cube, exactly the same way as Loki appeared. So the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. preconceived that Leah, like Thor and Loki, came from a world similar to Asgard. Black Widow thought for a moment and continued to ask, then what is the purpose of your coming to Earth, time earthquake? Of course, you can understand it as Loki opening a door through the cosmic cube. For some reason, I also fell into your world through this door. Lee wiped out his mouth and finished his lunch today. I wrote for a long time last night, but I couldn't feel like writing, so I went to watch Avengers 1 and Avengers 2 again. Well, this is why I am going to be sluggish for a while. TT. Chapter 211, S.H.I.E.L.D. So you have no ill will towards us? Black Widow shifted in her seat and asked cautiously. According to Director Fury, Leah is not only invulnerable, but also capable of flying flat on the ground, without the aid of any weapons, and crashing through the thick ceiling of the cube research base and the nearly 10 meters of soil above it. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s data simulated such a scenario and concluded that Leah's body could withstand at least 500 tons of impact and remain intact. Loki alone is already a headache for S.H.I.E.L.D., and they desperately need to avoid another enemy at this moment. Furthermore, if Leah could side with S.H.I.E.L.D., like Thor, then their chances of defeating Loki would undoubtedly increase. This was Director Fury's final mission for Black Widow. Leah had no idea that S.H.I.E.L.D. was trying to recruit him to fight Loki. Would such a puny god need the support of others to fight him? But judging by his fighting power, Leah could single-handedly make Loki cry daddy. Malice? I think the kind you mean by malice is looking for trouble. As long as you don't cause me trouble, I won't. I can even help you defeat Loki and retrieve the Tesseract. Lee wrote a blank check, because according to the plot, Loki would surrender and infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. He would then use the Mind Stone to sow suspicion among the heroes present, causing them to collapse from within. After this, Loki would easily escape, travel to Stark Tower, and open a portal in time and space, allowing the Chitauri army to flood the streets of Manhattan, New York. Although Lee's promise was only verbal, Black Widow breathed a sigh of relief. She followed Lee's suggestion, saying, "It's great that you agree to help us deal with Loki. Director Fury has gathered many people with special talents like you. Are you interested in getting to know each other? Believe me, you won't be disappointed." Black Widow Natasha extended the invitation, and Lee knew that the special talents she was referring to were probably Iron Man, Captain America, and the like. A trip to Marvel and getting to know the heroes of this world wouldn't be a bad idea. Then take me to meet the special talent you're talking about, Leah responded, standing up and saying with a smile, "Then I'll have to treat you to lunch another day." Natasha smiled at Leah's teasing. As Leah left the compartment, she tilted her head and pressed the communicator in her ear. Mission accomplished, preparing to return. 8 kilometers off the New York coastline, a massive vessel gradually emerged from the sea. It was S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicarrier. Half an hour ago, S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Fury ordered it to set sail, and the behemoth soared from the sea into the air. Ready, all engines on, executing S.H.I.E.L.D. Emergency Protocol 193.6, aircraft carrier reaching the designated altitude, sir, Agent Hill reported. Director Fury stood at the bridge command station. Activate the reflectors, we're going to disappear. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicarriers feature a state-of-the-art background reflective template, using refracted backgrounds to achieve visual invisibility. At that moment, a dark figure appeared in front of the helicarrier. Sir, UFO sighted. No. That's a person, reporting to the commander, onboard weapons fully charged and ready to fire. Fury zoomed in on the screen and saw that the figure was hovering in midair was none other than the mysterious figure he had met at the Cube research base the previous night. Furthermore, in that person's arms was Natasha, the Black Widow, the two of them chatting and laughing as they stared ahead. Don't panic, Agent Natasha has reported that this person is not an enemy. Turn on the signal light and guide them. Before Fury could finish, Leah dove forward. Natasha, in his arms, let out a startled cry, clinging to Leah's arm tightly. It was unclear whether her reaction was genuine shock or just a show for Leah's sake. In short, The SHIELD helicarrier's reflective background could only fool ordinary people. Under Leah's clairvoyant eyes, anything hidden was exposed. Fury's lips twitched. Alright, they've spotted us. Open the deck and let them in. 2 minutes later, Leah and Natasha, known as the Black Widow, appeared inside the helicarrier, greeted by Director Fury himself. Also accompanying them was a muscular man in a 1930s leather jacket and a doctor with unkempt hair and a somewhat dull demeanor. Their identities were self-evident. Welcome to Earth, Mr. Leah. Please allow me to apologize for my disrespect yesterday. Director Fury was a man who could handle situations with ease. After learning of Leah's immense power, he was reluctant to add another powerful enemy to the world. I accept your apology, Director Fury. Also, I'm from Earth in another universe, except that there's no SHIELD. Leah stated his identity without hesitation. For someone possessing absolute power, there's no need to consider cause and effect, just as someone walking down the street doesn't consider stepping on an ant. Director Fury had already gathered some information from Black Widow's report. A man in a leather jacket nearby looked quizzical. Now, not only are aliens appearing, but people from other universes are showing up too. Steve, the world has changed a lot in the years you've been asleep. The shaggy-haired doctor smiled and patted Steve Rogers on the shoulder. Then, stepping forward, he extended his hand and smiled at Leah. Hello, my name is Bruce Banner. Dr. Banner primarily researched nuclear physics, but he also had a keen curiosity about things like alien worlds and parallel universes. Leah scanned Dr. Banner with his X-ray vision, but even just the scan made the giant within Banner suddenly grow irritable. The Hulk sensed Leah was spying on him. Immediately, Leah averted his gaze and extended his hand to shake Dr. Banner's. Nice to meet you. My name is Leah. Director Fury smiled as he looked at the others. Seeing things unfold as he'd hoped, he felt a sense of relief. Okay, it's not good for everyone to just stand around. Agent Natasha, take these men to the break room, fly, and the ability to adapt to various environments. With the presence of Thor, the Asgardian god, it wasn't difficult for everyone to understand. Natasha even fired a few shots at Leah, still unconvinced, but Leah blocked them with his bare hands, much to the amazement of Captain America, Steve, and Dr. Banner. Leah then brought up the topic of this world's technological advancements, including research in space science. Dr. Banner specialized in nuclear physics, but he also dabbled in other areas of science. Leah proposed some hypotheses about space-time ripples, as well as their detection and recording. These concepts have already been explored in the Injustice universe, but in the current Marvel universe, they are still at the hypothetical stage. That's incredible. If space, like the surface of water, has its own unique ripples, then based on these ripples, we can understand the characteristics of space-time and even travel through time. Mr. Li Yang, I have to say your idea is pure genius. Even before the story even started, many readers were worried that the protagonist would go back to work for SHIELD. After all, Leah is a god on Earth, so why would he work for SHIELD? Shouldn't the script have been about SHIELD working for Leah? After all, shouldn't someone who just traveled through time be thinking about how to get back first? Building up his own power right away is just like wanting to pick up women whenever he sees them. Chapter 212, Hulk Card. Banner stared at Lee with ecstasy. As a doctor of physics, he was well aware of the weight of Lee's question. Any research would undoubtedly win a Nobel Prize. Lee gave an embarrassed smile. Dr. Banner, you've forgotten I've traveled through time and space. Currently, all we need to solve the problem of spatial location is to detect ripples in space-time, but this fundamental foundation relies on conventional and superluminal transmission. Even Kryptonian technology couldn't solve this problem. Kryptonian technology could only achieve teleportation within a single universe. Breaking through the spatial barriers of the universe could only be achieved through the Speed Force or the Space Stone. Lee had a wealth of Kryptonian knowledge stored in his head, but through discussions with Dr. Banner, this Force knowledge gradually became his own, and he began to integrate it. By the end, the two men were chatting animatedly, while Fury, Captain America, and Steve stood there in a daze, looking at each other. Their confused eyes seemed to be asking, what are they talking about? Where am I? What am I doing? They could understand the individual words, but when combined into a sentence, it seemed like incomprehensible. Steve, the ship has activated its facial recognition system and is searching the world for Loki. Would you like to come and see? Director Fury rubbed his bald head and looked at Captain America, Steve Rogers. He breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, someone was speaking words he could understand. Then, with a determined expression, he said, "Yes, sir." With that, the two men, with expressions of serious dedication to their work, left the lounge. In an unknown place in the endless universe, Loki's spirit appeared, meeting the gaze of the figure in the darkness. "Asgardian, do not forget who entrusted you with the scepter, granted you ancient knowledge, and entrusted you with a new mission." Loki, clad in the armor of the evil god, held the scepter inlaid with a mind stone. He gave the figure in the darkness a cold smile. "I've obtained the cube. Just open the portal, and I'll lead you Chitauri to victory in this war, haha. You call crushing those ants on Earth war?" The figure in the darkness scoffed harshly. "Okay, whatever you say, but remember, if you fail, or if the cube falls into someone else's hands, you know the consequences of offending that person. The pain you've known is as sweet as honey compared to that person." At this, Loki's mind flashed through a tall figure. His body stiffened slightly. It had to be said that figure held a terrifying presence in Loki's mind. His mind exited the unknown, and Loki returned to his secret base. Everyone was busy, and he arrived at Dr. Eric's studio. "Is the portal ready?" Loki asked excitedly. Said, "The Rubik's Cube has opened my eyes to many things, things that transcend knowledge and are truths. It wasn't until this moment that I truly understood the insignificance of humanity. The portal device is almost complete, but I've discovered it's missing a crucial element." Loki narrowed his eyes and asked, "What element?" "Iridium." Dr. Eric gestured with his hands. "It's an element found in meteorites, capable of forming antiprotons." Loki uttered a no and looked at Hawkeye Barton. Barton quickly located the iridium. "But if S.H.I.E.L.D. finds out, we'll be in trouble. Take someone and get it for me." "I'll distract S.H.I.E.L.D." Loki said, turning and leaving. On the helicarrier, a technician noticed Loki's facial recognition. He quickly reported to Director Fury, "Sir, we've found the target." Director Fury was chatting with Captain America, Steve, about the past. Upon hearing this news, his expression suddenly grew serious. "Where is the target?" The technician operated the computer, bringing the newly discovered surveillance footage to the screen. 28 Königstrasse, Stuttgart, Germany. Director Fury looked at Captain America, a look of entrustment in his eyes. "Captain, it's your turn." "Understood." Captain America, Steve, is a soldier at heart, and a soldier's nature is to follow orders. After receiving the order, Captain America boarded Black Widow's plane and flew towards Stuttgart, Germany. After Captain America left, Director Fury, hands behind his back, strolled to the lounge door. He didn't enter, but stood there, thinking. Agent Coulson went to persuade Iron Man, and while the Hulk was a bit uncontrollable, if S.H.I.E.L.D. could win over Banner, they would effectively bring the Hulk into their fold. As for Leah, Director Fury sighed, recalling the S.H.I.E.L.D. database's assessment of Leah. His overall combat power was unknown, but many details suggested that Leah was on par with Thor, if not more so. Director Fury was overwhelmed by this kind of person. Friendship level raised to friendly, unlocking Bruce Banner, Hulk, character card. Leah was still discussing space theory with Dr. Banner when a system notification chimed in. He peered into the system and saw, unsurprisingly, that the Hulk's card was Upper Purple Heroic. The Hulk possessed exceptionally high basic attributes, most notably his combat power, which increased with anger. However, this was somewhat useless for Li Yam. Instead of relying on anger to increase his strength, it would be better to activate his godlike full power mode. Full-powered Li Yam's mental strength would also increase, maintaining a state of absolute rationality, unaffected by emotions like anger. However, given the Hulk's performance in the early stages of the story, he was indeed a bit of a bug, easily wielding the Hulk to his advantage. Leah casually equipped the first character card of the Marvel Universe into the main card slot. Feeling a slight increase in his own strength, Leah smiled and continued a scientific discussion with Dr. Banner. Their exchange opened a new scientific door for Dr. Banner, who in turn provided Leah with numerous ideas. These ideas all could be used to repair the space-time signal device using current technology. Leah suddenly looked up at the door. He had naturally overheard the conversation in the hall and knew Director Fury was standing at the door to the lounge. He smiled and ignored them. The Justice League, which he had built in his own universe, and joined S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Avengers. Even if he did join an organization, he would have to build one himself. Besides figuring out how to repair the space-time signal device, Leah stayed here to get to know Thor and understand the differences between the gods of the Asgardian pantheon and those of Zeus. After all, The system had suggested that Leia combine the genetics of various powerful races. Back in Germany, Loki appeared and engaged Captain America. Tony Stark also donned his Iron Man suit and went to support. As soon as the two sides clashed, Loki surrendered. He began the second part of his plan, infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. and dismantling it from within. After capturing Loki, Captain America and his men prepared to return. Just then, the sky suddenly became overcast with dark clouds and thunder rumbled. "Loki, you claim to be a god, yet you're afraid of thunder?" Captain America, Steve Rogers, noticed the pale face of his captive Loki and couldn't help but tease him. The evil god Loki pursed his lips and shook his head, smiling. "No, I just don't like people who follow lightning." The next second, the plane trembled with a loud bang. Thor has arrived. Chapter 213, The Weak God. "Sir, news from the front lines. Thor has arrived and kidnapped Loki." The technician immediately reported the situation. Director Fury, brow furrowed, paced back and forth on the bridge. Agent Coulson had returned to headquarters and was now standing beside Director Fury, watching the remote video feed. "Sir, don't worry, Thor is not an enemy. Get the cube back." Director Fury felt a little exhausted. Leah and Banner had concluded their discussion. Dr. Banner, saying he needed to digest what he had discussed with Leah, had gone back to the S.H.I.E.L.D. lab, immersed in research. As for Leah, bored, he came to the bridge. "Thor's here?" "Yes." How much do you know about Thor?" Director Fury noticed that Leah seemed to know a great deal about their affairs. "Just a little bit, Director Fury." "Please open the deck so I can go out for a while," Leah said, turning and leaving. Director Fury's gaze flickered between the footage transmitted by Leah and Agent Natasha. He had a daring idea. Was Leah trying to get involved in Thor's affairs? Unsure whether this was a good or bad move, Director Fury shook his head and said to Leah's back, "Mr. Leah, I'll get you a plane." "No need." Before he could finish his words, Leah took off into the air. A sonic boom echoed from the sky, and Director Fury immediately ordered, "Film Leah's flight. All intelligence departments, attention. Analyze immediately." Everyone sprang into action, S.H.I.E.L.D. cameras locked onto Leah. The young man, once dressed in a suit and tie, had suddenly changed into a pitch-black battlesuit, his cape rustling. He sped forward like an arrow, so fast that the air around him formed a visible cloud of black dot. Hiss. Director Fury was genuinely terrified. His mind was racing, wondering who Leah was. Even Thor couldn't reach such speeds. Considering the pressure on the body and the heat generated by air friction. Reporting to the commander, the target's speed exceeds Mach 9, more than 3 times faster than a MiG-25 fighter, and it's still accelerating. The technician reported the basic data, and the remaining intelligence analysis was handed over to the intelligence department. In just a few minutes, Leah flew directly from New York, USA, to Stuttgart, Germany. In a mountain range, he spotted Thor battling Iron Man and Captain America. As for Loki, he watched the battle below with great interest. Loki had already planned to be captured by S.H.I.E.L.D., so he chose not to flee when he could. As Loki admired the battle below, his divine intuition gave him a sense of danger, and his hair stood on end. Turning sharply, Loki saw a figure in black hovering in midair, gazing at him with a half-smile. "Who are you?" Loki frowned. He looked Leah up and down. Although Leah possessed the power of the gods, he was clearly not an Asgardian god. And most importantly, Leah was actually levitating in midair, without relying on divine power or any weaponry. He was simply soaring. "God of gods, ahem, evil god Loki, you are much weaker than I imagined." Leah slowly descended from the air, walked in front of Loki, and reached out to grab Loki's scepter. Loki, of course, would not surrender. He swung the scepter toward Leah's chest. Bang! Before the scepter's tip could pierce Leah, he snatched it in his hand. Loki's face froze. The next second, Leah crushed the gemstone on the scepter with his force, sending a terrifying mental wave emanating from him. "Wow! You destroyed the scepter. Foolish man, do you even know what you've done?" The shockwave of energy sent Loki back a few steps, staring at Leah in disbelief. It wasn't just because Leah could single-handedly crush the scepter's divine defenses, but also because Leah remained completely motionless under the impact of this energy surge. Ignoring Loki's fuss, Leah spread his hands and blew gently. Metal fragments of the scepter flew away, leaving behind a droplet-shaped, transparent gem, which Leah grasped between her fingers and examined closely. Thanos is so confident in entrusting the Mind Stone to you. He truly thinks highly of you. Those familiar with the plot know that Loki opened the portal and allowed the Chitauri army to invade Earth precisely to retrieve Earth's two Infinity Stones, the Space Stone, the Tesseract, and the Time Stone, the Eye of Agamotto. Unfortunately, Loki wasn't a qualified warrior, or perhaps Earth's superheroes weren't strong enough, which completely thwarted Thanos' plans. He had to wait for the death of the Asgardian god Odin before he could emerge from the shadows and begin collecting the 6 Infinity Stones. Although Odin's true power isn't revealed in the cinematic universe, he simply appears to be an elderly, shabby old man. However, as the most powerful god of the Norse pantheon, Thanos worried that the old man might experience a moment of strength, thwarting his plans with the same vigor he had once employed to conquer the 9 realms. Fortunately, over a decade later, Thanos finally had his chance. Of course, that was a story for another time. You actually know Thanos. Loki's expression changed. He couldn't determine Lea's identity, but he was certain that Lea wasn't on his side. Sir, since you know Thanos, you must also know how terrifying he is. Return the gem to me, and don't interfere with my plans, or else. Before he could finish his words, Loki's clone appeared behind Lea, stabbing him in the back with a dagger in hand. It was an Asgardian-forged artifact, a weapon even a body of steel couldn't withstand. Lea tilted her body slightly, and without even glancing back, she delivered an elbow strike. Bang! The elbow, imbued with divine power, shattered Loki's clone. Loki's expression changed. Taking advantage of Lea's distraction, he attacked again. He dropped the remnant of his scepter, and 2 daggers materialized in his. Lea snorted coldly, reaching out to grab Loki's wrist. Then, with a powerful swing, he threw Loki to the ground. Bang! The ground cracked, rubble flew everywhere, but Lea didn't stop, swinging Loki again, rumbling and smashing him. Loki's physique was undeniably formidable. The surrounding rocks were shattered, but Loki's body remained intact. Just looking at him lying in the rubble, his arms folded across his chest, a look of despair on his face, it was clear that his fragile heart had been deeply shaken. Chapter 214, Thor the Hammer. Where's the Tesseract? Lea demanded, stepping on Loki's chest. Loki reached out, trying to push Lea away, but no matter how hard he tried, Lea's foot wouldn't budge. I don't know. The cube isn't with me. If you don't believe me, search for it yourself, don't try to play tricks on me. Lea applied a slight pressure, and the ground beneath him suddenly cracked, rumbling. Under his feet, Loki felt like a planet bearing down on him. His face flushed like a cooked crab, and he spoke with difficulty, "It's really not with me. I gave the cube to Dr. Eric, and he moved it somewhere else today. Even if you kill me, you won't get the Tesseract." This was true. According to the plot, Dr. Eric would transport the equipment needed to open the portal to the roof of Stark Tower that afternoon. He would then open the stable portal, allowing the Chitauri army to invade Earth. To find the Tesseract, Lea could either fly into the air and scan New York and other cities with his X-ray vision, or wait on the rooftop of Stark Tower. Of course, he had to rule out the possibility that his presence would cause a butterfly effect that altered the plot. Without your own satellite, finding something is really a hassle, Lea lamented. A loud bang echoed from behind him, and a golden and red figure flew backwards. It was Thor, the god of thunder, who swung Iron Man toward Lea. Simultaneously, Thor landed with a thud, his eyes first fixed on Loki, then angrily at Lea. He roared at Lea in a deep voice, "Take your foot off." Beside him, Iron Man staggered to his feet. His suit was badly damaged, sparks emanating from it. Tony removed his mask and took a deep breath of air. 20 years old, so it was no surprise that in front of the frivolous and foul-mouthed Iron Man, Tony Stark, he called Lea a child. As for Lea, he rolled his eyes at Iron Man, who, despite clearly being no match for Thor, refused to admit defeat. "Okay, big bastard, I'm on your side, but this hammer god Thor seems more intent on attacking me." Thor had a deep affection for his brother. No matter how Loki betrayed him, Thor would unconditionally tolerate and forgive him. So, seeing Lea bullying Loki, he was furious. But now, instead of letting Loki go, Lea mocked him as the hammer god. This remark simply ignited Thor's anger. Even Iron Man, standing nearby, couldn't help but give a thumbs up. "Haha, hammer god, you've nailed it, kid. This guy absolutely loves this hammer." Oh, wait, what did you just call me? Stark? Big piece of shit? As Iron Man spoke, Thor twirled Mjolnir, leaped in anger, and swung it at Leia. Leia's face calm remained, but he remained wary. He raised his hand to shield himself. Boom! Mjolnir crashed down, striking Leia's arm with the sudden sound of two heavy pieces of alloy clashing. A wave of lightning formed around them. The shockwave shook the entire mountain again. Captain America, halfway up, lost his grip and fell further down due to the trembling. Captain America hadn't attracted the attention of the people on the peak. Thor's blow sent Leia flying backwards dozens of meters, shattering a boulder behind him. Thor, god of hammers, your hammer is truly powerful. Leia dusted off his arm and praised him sincerely. Thor's strike unleashed the power of an upper violet heroic rank, but this wasn't Thor's strongest form. Once his true divine powers were awakened and he possessed Stormbreaker, Thor's power would undoubtedly reach the upper gold legendary rank, perhaps even its pinnacle. Loki seized this opportunity to flee, but Leia didn't stop him. With a Mind Stone in his hand, Loki would undoubtedly expedite the opening of the portal. Once the portal opened, Leia would know the whereabouts of the Tesseract. Witnessing Leia single-handedly withstanding the impact of Thor's hammer, Thor frowned. Though a reckless man, he wasn't foolish. Thor knew Leia was powerful. But what mattered? For a god who cherished glory, what could be more exhilarating than defeating a formidable foe? Boom! Thor stamped his feet, charging forward. Leia saw the fierce fighting spirit in his opponent's eyes. Since he wanted a fight, he might as well make him call him daddy. The next moment, Thor rushed in front of Leia again, however, stood there, seemingly unaware, allowed Thor's hammer to crush him. Iron Man, watching from behind, frowned. He had no idea what Leia was thinking. He had only learned from Coulson that Leia was a mysterious figure who had appeared yesterday, seemingly from another universe. What kind of abilities does this kid from another universe possess? Brute force. He would not be able to withstand the violent blow unleashed by the Thunderbolt. But Thor had divine power, and so did Leia. Thunder. Thunder suddenly appeared in Leia's right hand. The moment it collided with Mjolnir, a dazzling, radiant light echoed above the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, saw the huge rocks rolling down like a landslide, and he felt a deep sense of wrath. Meanwhile, the battle between Leia and Thor had just begun. Blocking Thor's violent blow, Leia reached out with his free hand, and lightning formed into a spear, suddenly piercing Thor's chest. Leia could also wield the power of thunder, which obviously caught Thor off guard. He hurriedly blocked, but was a bit too slow, and was struck in the chest by Leia's lightning spear. He groaned and flew backward. Resistances. Thor's magic resistance was indeed very strong. After being pierced by the lightning spear in the chest, Thor was only blown away and was not seriously injured. Thor, actually Loki is not your brother, this little brother is. Iron Man supported himself with his hands and spurted out flames, hovering in the air. Seeing Thor's defeat, he was in a good mood. Thor ignored Iron Man and looked at the Thor's hammer that fell at Leia's feet. He was ready to reach out and recall it. But Leia bent down first and reached out to grab Thor's hammer. In response, Thor couldn't help but reveal a sarcastic smile. You really don't know your place. You can't lift my hammer. Chapter 215, Who is Thor? If I can lift it, will you give me the hammer? Leia glanced intently at the sun rising over the horizon. Due to the time difference, it was already early morning there. The sun had just risen. Its rays bathed the earth, and Leia felt a sense of peace as he placed his hand on Thor's hammer. Thor's face darkened at this, and Iron Man, observing Thor's expression, fanned the flames. Kid, I'm not saying anything bad, but only Thor can lift this hammer. Do you think the mighty Thor would be afraid of a brat like you? Thor. Tony Stark pretended to support Thor, but in reality, he was aiding him into agreeing to Leia's suggestion. It was the saying, first praise, then kill. If Thor disagreed, wouldn't that be admitting he was afraid of Leia? This wasn't a particularly clever provocation, and any normal person would have dismissed it. But for Thor, the Asgardian god who prized honor and power, retreating was shameful. Recalling his father's words, only those recognized by Thor's hammer could lift it. Thor steeled himself. You can't lift it. If you can, I'll give it to you. These words were incredibly heroic, fitting for Thor's character. But even as they finished, Thor felt a pang of guilt. His opponent also wielded thunder. What if Thor's hammer recognized the wrong owner? Guilty as he was, Thor remained unconcerned, smiling and staring at Leia's hands. Leia calmly gripped the handle of Thor's hammer and lifted it with all his might. Thor's hammer remained motionless. "I told you he couldn't lift it." Thor breathed a sigh of relief and glanced triumphantly at Iron Man, though he had actually nearly jumped out of his skin. Fortunately, this hammer is intelligent, at least it can tell who owns it. Daddy never lied to me. Thor smiled brightly. As for Li Yang, he could feel the weight of Thor's hammer. According to the plot, Thor's hammer is made from materials extracted from the core of a dead star. When a star dies, depending on its mass, it becomes a white dwarf, a neutron star, or even a black hole. Furthermore, Odin has enchanted Thor's hammer with divine power. Only those who have Thor's approval can lift it. Otherwise, they will face Odin's divine restraint. Don't get complacent, I haven't even used my strength yet. Li Ya's eyes were serious this time. He took a deep breath, grasped the handle of Thor's hammer with both hands, and then spread his legs slightly apart. He mentally counted 3, 2, 1, and exerted his strength. Boom. Almost instantly, the mountain split open, a deep gully spreading from beneath Li Ya's feet all the way to the base. Li Ya erupted with all his might, veins bulging in his hands as he exerted his full strength. This was the first time since obtaining his Superman card that Li Ya had ever had to lift something with all his might. As Li Ya exerted his strength, the mountain's shaking intensified, as if an earthquake had struck. Captain America had barely dodged the falling rocks and was nearly at the top, even visible from his mid-air, Iron Man. But what the hell was this earthquake sudden? What the hell are you three doing on the top of the mountain? Thor's face darkened. He could sense the mountain's altitude gradually dropping. He glanced at the village at the foot of the mountain and quickly used his divine power to shield the surroundings, preventing the mountain from collapsing. Although I only have 65% Kryptonian DNA, with the sunlight shining on me, I'm invincible, roared furiously in his heart. He wasn't yet at full power, and the Hulk card's special ability was now taking effect. Leah's emotions grew agitated, and his strength multiplied. Thor's hammer shook slightly, and Thor's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Fortunately, after the initial tremor, the hammer remained still. Haha, still can't lift it? Thor's smile faded. He couldn't help but pat his chest and let out a long sigh of relief. This kid is really strong, but it's a shame he still can't lift Thor's hammer. That's not necessarily true. I feel like the kid still has some strength left. Iron Man Tony Stark wasn't fully aware of Leah's abilities, but his intuition told him that Leah hadn't yet fully unleashed his full power. However, Thor was certain that no one else could lift Mjolnir. He waved his hand. Tin Man, you're wrong. That guy can't lift it. If he can, I really don't want this hammer. Thor spoke with such confidence that Iron Man casually recorded the soundproofing. Leah, combined with the energy of the sun and the Hulk card's properties, unleash boundless strength. He indeed overcame the weight of Mjolnir through brute force. However, after overcoming the weight of Mjolnir, he faced the divine restraints placed upon it by Odin. The power of Odin, king of the gods. Leah had no idea what level of divine magic Odin had cast upon Mjolnir. But the immense power filled him with a sense of awe. As befitted a man who had conquered the 9 realms, Odin's power was truly formidable. Though he was old and his health was failing, that didn't mean his divine power had diminished. Like all great wizards, the older they get, the stronger their magic becomes. If Odin himself were here, I'd be no match for him. But it's just a divine restraint, and I refuse to believe I can't break it. Leah was stubborn, and once he'd decided on something, he wouldn't give up easily. Besides, he'd always claimed he could lift Thor's hammer, so to say he couldn't now would be truly humiliating. God of punishment, for a moment, and finally, a massive bolt of lightning descended, striking Li Yang. Thor's smile froze. He looked at Li Yang, bathed in the silver light of thunder. His eyes were a silvery white, no, it was Thor himself. Hey, Thor, are you Thor, or is he? Iron Man calmly delivered a finishing blow. Heartbreaking. Thor's face paled, and what left him even more speechless was that Mjolnir, which had only swung briefly a moment ago, was now trembling furiously. He couldn't possibly have lifted it. I'll be adding more chapters this weekend to exhaust my remaining manuscripts. I'll continue with this short and weak update for a few days, but by the end of the week, I'll be back in full force. Chapter 216, an axe, not a hammer. Watching Thor's hammer tremble, Thor was on the verge of tears. What about the promise that no one but I could lift it? What about the promise that I'd gain the hammer's approval? Father, you've betrayed your son. Ignoring Thor, Leia bathed himself in a sea of silvery lightning, his divine power battling the restrictions set by Odin. Energy surged through the air like a hurricane. The roar was deafening. It's just a divine restriction, break it. Leia increased his power again. Even with divine support, the mountain beneath him couldn't withstand the force and collapsed. Rumble. Leia plummeted dozens of meters, stabilizing himself amidst a torrential downpour of rubble. Slowly, he lifted Thor's hammer. Odin's divine restriction, broken by him. Seeing Leia lift Thor's hammer with one hand, Thor's expression darkened to the point of extreme dismay, while Iron Man cheered. Meanwhile, in distant Asgard, within a magnificent palace, a one-eyed old man with white hair and beard lay soundly asleep on his couch. Suddenly, his fingers trembled, and he abruptly opened his eyes, half sitting up on the couch. Thor, no, not him. Odin slowly rose, casually picking up his eternal spear, using it as a crutch as he walked to the palace entrance. Who broke my restraint? The old man muttered, his single remaining eye casting a distant gaze, as if gazing through the void. Due to landslide, Captain America no longer needed to climb and plummeted to the ground. Debris rained down from the air, and Leia's gaze swept across the distant village at the foot of the mountain. If the landslide were allowed to continue, the tumbling debris would destroy the mortal village. Thunder. Leia raised Mjolnir. Odin's divine restraint was broken, and anyone capable of lifting it through brute force could wield it. Crash. Countless bolts of lightning converged on Thor's hammer. When its power reached its limit, Leia swung it down. Boom. Boom. A sudden explosion of lightning exploded in the air, instantly vaporizing everything in its path, whether debris or rock. Iron Man soared through the air. The visual effect wasn't particularly stunning. It was Captain America, at the foot of the mountain, who truly felt the force. He had initially been desperate, prepared to withstand the onslaught of debris, but in that instant, the mountain's shattering rubble suddenly shattered, dissolving into an endless cloud of dust that scattered from the sky. What the hell are those three doing? Captain America was truly exhausted. This was his first mission since returning from the glacier. He'd thought it would be a simple one, at least until he captured Loki. But Leia's arrival changed the entire situation. What had I missed in those 70 years of sleep? Captain America felt a pang of frustration. The first figure to descend from the sky was Thor. Thor's hammer wasn't in his hand, and since he couldn't fly, he was the first to land. Iron Man landed next, striking a rather showy pose. Hey, old man, what are you doing here? I thought you went home. Captain America had a murderous look on his face. He wanted to say he was just hiking, but the words just wouldn't come out. After they both landed, Leia slowly floated down, playing with Thor's hammer and looking at Thor with a smile. Let's talk about Loki. Loki's on the run now. Can you find his hiding place? Thor tried to change the subject, using Loki to distract Leia. Little did he know. Leia didn't care where Loki was. He feigned contemplation, continuing to play with Thor's hammer. Captain America was confused by this. What was going on? Iron Man Tony Stark had accidentally played a recording. Tin Man, you're wrong. That guy can't lift it. If he could, I'd give up the hammer. Thor's deep voice boomed from within Iron Man's armor. Thor's face instantly turned green, his eyes blazing at Tony Stark. Sorry. My suit seemed to malfunction while we were fighting. Tony lifted his visor and apologized with a sincere look. He frantically pressed the replay button several times. As the recording continued to repeat, Thor's temper reached a breaking point. At worst, he'd just fight again. He simply didn't believe it. He, the mighty god of thunder, had never feared anyone in a fight. Clairvoyant eyes observed Thor's adrenaline rush, and from the expression on his face, he could tell what he was thinking. He smiled and tossed Thor's hammer back. Thor, in his furious state, was stunned when he saw Leia return the hammer. Then he asked, What are you doing? Give it back to you. It's yours. I can't have it. Leia put his hands behind his back, striking a detached pose. I, Leia, have lived an upright life. How could I possibly care about a friend's things? Friend, Iron Man was just as confused as Thor. They had just fought, so how could they be friends now? Leia nodded, looking at Thor with an affirmative look. As the saying goes, no fight, no friendship. During our battle, I saw that you value honor above all else. So, I'm committed to being your friend. Iron Man was speechless, even scoffing. Where's your face? Where's your face? Do you want some more? Such obvious nonsense, only an idiot would fall for it. Thor, however, looked at him with a look of regret. Yes, you're right. We Asgardians never back down. He glanced at his Mjolnir with a complex expression. With a heavy sigh, Thor held it out to Li Yam. I accept the bet. Since I said you can lift it, it's yours. Iron Man's smile froze. You believe that? Ignoring Tony's gaze, Li Yam waved his hand at Thor and declined. That's enough for me, but honestly, I'm not good with a hammer. If you had an axe, I'd gladly accept it. So, you should keep the hammer, okay? It's settled then. I'll search the Asgard treasury. I swear by Thor, if I can find an axe as good as Thor's hammer, I'll give it to you, Thor said generously. He had been careful this time. There wasn't an axe of the same caliber as Thor's hammer in the Asgard treasury. Ha ha ha. Iron Man caught sight of Leah pulling out his phone and recording a conversation, so he asked, "Why are you recording too?" Leah uttered a no, and looked at Thor as if he were a fool. "This is a testimony of our friendship." "Yes. A testimony of our friendship," Thor returned Leah's gaze. He didn't mind Leah recording at all. Since he didn't have the axe, he had nothing to worry about. Ling. Friendship level raised to friendly, unlocking the Thor Odinson, Thor, card. The system notification chimed, but Leah wasn't surprised. After all, Thor was much simpler than Iron Man and the others. As long as they liked each other, they could become friends. In the Marvel Universe, the Thor card was truly a must-have character card. Leah glanced at the card's attributes. Odinson, Thor, race, Asgardian primary card effect, thunder power, Asgardian god's physique. Additional notes, magical growth type. With enormous potential. Since Leah possesses 65% optimized Kryptonian genes in the physics department, he is almost physically invincible, so he chose to equip the Thor card in the main card slot, and the original Hulk card was transferred to the secondary card slot. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217, Tony's Invitation. On the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, Director Fury appeared to be questioning Agent Natasha, but his eyes drifted to Leah. Steve reported truthfully, Leah destroyed Loki's scepter, but a gem remains. He then added, I think this gem could be a good starting point in our search for the Rubik's Cube, as it resonates with me like a Hydra weapon. I don't know much about Hydra, but the scepter's power is closely Director Fury. First of all, this thing is called the Mind Stone. He extended his hand, and a transparent container materialized. In its center, a yellow, teardrop-shaped gem rested quietly. He continued, secondly, you can't control the Mind Stone's power, Dr. Banner. You should take it and study it. Leah then tossed the container directly to Dr. Banner. The Mind Stone. So, Loki controlled Barton and Dr. Eric using the power of this stone. Director Fury stared intently at the container in Dr. Banner's hand. Both the Tesseract and the Mind Stone were inexhaustible treasures for Earthlings. That's true, but the Mind Stone requires a specific container to function. I crushed Loki's scepter, but the Mind Stone is still functioning. Leah attempted to control the Mind Stone with divine power, but failed. Perhaps his divine power wasn't strong enough, or perhaps it requires a specific container, such as Loki's scepter or Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. With these containers, controlling the Infinity Stones would greatly simplify the control of the stones. Thor put away his hammer and asked in confusion, you said the Mind Stone is still functioning. What do you mean, Thor? Can't you feel the spiritual energy emanating from the Mind Stone? The spiritual energy of the Mind Stone is affecting the emotions of everyone present. The Mind Stone was constantly emitting energy. Because Leah knew the plot, he followed the clues and discovered a clue. Dr. Banner was still holding a transparent container. Upon hearing Leah's words, he dropped it onto the table as if struck by an electric shock. He stood up and stepped back in panic. He was worried that the Mind Stone would affect some green creature and cause it to escape uncontrollably. Leah had almost forgotten about this. Don't worry, just create an energy barrier for the Mind Stone. At worst, I'll let Tony handle the research. He finished speaking. Leah extended a finger and unleashed a bolt of lightning, creating a divine barrier around the transparent container. Fury's expression suddenly changed. He subconsciously rubbed his remaining eye, somewhat unconvinced by what he was seeing. Portals. Tony, dressed in a suit, swaggered into the meeting room. While I'm not sure what Loki wants to do with the portal, he's still missing a crucial component, energy. Lee continued. To activate the Tesseract, we need a high-density energy source, heating it to 120 million degrees Celsius to break through the Coulomb barrier. Tony Stark's eyes lit up as he listened to Lee's words. That's right, unless Dr. Eric has figured out another way to stabilize the quantum tunneling effect. Kid, what's your name? You were the one who defeated Hammer God before, weren't you? Hearing Tony tease him again, Thor was furious and wanted to confront him, but Tony ignored him and shook Lee's hand. My name is Lee Yam. Actually, it's not that there aren't other ways to stabilize the quantum tunneling effect. Tony, let me give you an inappropriate example. Think of space-time as the surface of water. Because matter doesn't move, it's divided into two worlds. If you want to cross the surface to reach the other world, you'll encounter the problem of matter conversion. To solve this problem, the teleporter itself needs to be upgraded. We can build a light-speed teleporter. At the moment of teleportation, the space within the teleporter can be accelerated to the speed of light to achieve heavy ion beam fusion. This approach has also been approved by Dr. Banner. Lee's proposed concept is actually the basic principle of the Ghost engine in Kryptonian technology. After this long string of words, the system's voice sounded unexpectedly, yet reasonably. Ling. Friendship value increased to friendly, unlocking Tony Stark's character card. Because the system prioritizes a character's extraordinary strength attributes, Tony's character card was rated wide in the card evaluation, but with the added caveat that his creativity and intelligence reached heroic level. In other words, after Lee equipped the Tony Stark character card in the main card slot, Lee could also combine Kryptonian technology to create a purple, heroic Iron Man suit. Hearing this long string of scientific jargon, Director Fury and Captain America couldn't help but rub their brows. It was really impossible to communicate properly with these scientists. Dr. Banner, called on by Leah, joined the discussion. He said to Tony, Leah's hypothesis is theoretically feasible, but as you just said, the biggest problem right now is energy. The energy required to break through space has always been the biggest obstacle to human exploration. Tony thought seriously. Energy isn't the problem. I've built the arc reactor, which should provide the energy to break through space. But how can we achieve directional teleportation? Ahem. Guys, are we mistaken? Director Fury coughed lightly. Our primary goal is to find Loki and retrieve the Tesseract, not discuss space or anything like that, right? Thor, Captain America, Steve Rogers, and others agreed. But Tony rolled his eyes at them, as if he were looking at a group of primitive monkeys. Ah, ignorant mortal. Leah just in time took out her space-time signal device and handed it to Tony Stark. This is the answer you're looking for. As I said earlier, if you think of space-time as the surface of water, then every surface will have ripples. Space is never fixed. It's invisible and intangible, but it's a form of energy that can be detected. Essentially, space and time are both forms of energy. Just like the space stone and the time stone. Tony took the space-time signal device from Leah's hand. The more he examined it, the more incredible it seemed to him. So, you use this to get to our universe. It's broken, and combined with the energy from the cosmic cube, it caused me to fall to your universe, Leah said. Tony Stark looked away, stroking the space-time signal device in his hands. Hey, your name is Leah, right? You really should come to Stark Tower sometime. My top 10 floors are all research and development. I think you'd like it. Also, could you lend me this thing to study? Maybe I can help you fix it. Chapter 218, Portal. Although the time-space signal device was damaged, worth less than a watch in the hands of an ordinary person, Tony Stark knew the value of this small box. He was certain that if he took it back and studied it carefully, he would uncover a wealth of scientific and technological advances far beyond his time. Leah smiled at Tony's request. He was eager for Tony Stark to help repair the time-space signal device. He nodded, no problem, it's yours, thanks. I'll go get my suit first, then return to Stark Tower to study it. Tony waved the small box in his hand and turned to leave S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Fury finally couldn't help himself. Hey, does anyone remember Loki? The one who stole the Tesseract. The Tesseract belongs to Asgard, Thor corrected. According to the original plot, Loki pretended to be captured, then used his scepter to make everyone present lose control of their emotions, causing mutual suspicion and ultimately a fight. Leah's appearance gave Loki a sense of crisis. So he abandoned his plan to be captured and went straight to the point. opening a portal and allowing the Chitauri army to deal with Earth's super soldiers. Speaking of which, Lee's voice suddenly rose, catching his attention. He continued, Tony, you just said the arc reactor can provide powerful everyone energy, and Loki needs just enough energy, my building. Yes, Loki wants an audience. We saw his performance in Stuttgart, but that was just a preview. This is the premiere, and he wants to be the star of this spectacular farce. He craves flowers and applause, a towering monument with his name engraved on it. Tony Stark was now absolutely certain that Loki would open the portal atop his Stark Tower. Brothers, what are we waiting for? Lee stood up and clicked a silver bracelet, instantly donning a jet-black battlesuit. Everyone was stunned at this sight, but Tony's eyes lit up, as if asking what kind of technology this was. If they could figure out the underlying principles, Tony's problem with carrying the Iron Man suit would be solved. Nanotechnology, we'll discuss this with you sometime. Let's deal with Loki first, Leah casually explained, then left a meeting room. Nanotechnology, so cool, Tony whistled softly and walked out alongside Thor. The three flying machines left first, while Captain America and Black Widow simultaneously looked at Director Fury. You guys go fly the planes, and be sure to stay safe. What about me? Dr. Banner felt his presence was a little underwhelming. While that was a good thing, it still felt strange. Let's go together. Did Thor say Loki has an army? One more person means more strength. Finally, Director Fury sighed, his eyes settling on the Mind Stone and its transparent container. He longed to pocket it, but, with the Asgardian Thor on one side and a mysterious figure from another universe on the other, Fury simply didn't have the guts to steal the Mind Stone. This wasn't an emergency response team. It was more like inviting a bunch of bigwigs. Fortunately, Captain America and Black Widow were relatively obedient, otherwise Director Fury would have quit. After everyone left, Director Fury summoned Coulson. Coulson, I have a minor mission for you. His expression darkened at this opening line. Sir, any instructions? With your authority, you have access to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s plans to use the Tesseract to create weapons. Before Director Fury could finish, Coulson looked embarrassed. Honestly, if Thor hadn't gotten involved, we still had a good chance of recovering the Tesseract, but, no, I want you to destroy those weapons. Director Fury patted Coulson on the shoulder. It's precisely because we know we can't get the Tesseract that we should do this cleanly to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. No problem, Coulson breathed a sigh of relief. He had thought the director wanted him to do something else. Turns out it was just destroying unfinished weapons, not sending them to their deaths. It wasn't a big deal. Understood, sir. Well, I'll be down first, go ahead. New York, Manhattan, Stark Tower. Leah and Tony flew to the top of the building and saw a strange energy transmitter and Dr. Eric fuddling with it. Shut it down, Dr. Selvig. Tony raised his hands in a warning. It's too late. It can't be turned off. Take a good look. The cube will reveal a whole new universe to humanity, the controlled Dr. Eric Selvig exclaimed excitedly. Leah's telepathic sense revealed that the other man still had traces of the Mind Stone's power, undispelled by Leah's destruction of Loki's scepter. Tony, standing by, fired his energy cannon. Then let me forcibly shut it down. Bang! Boom! As Iron Man's energy cannon descended, a barrier of light illuminated around the transmitter, dispersing Iron Man's attack. Leah stepped in front of Iron Man, the powerful energy blasting him before wiping him out without a trace. Tony, stand back. Let me try. Iron Man's firepower couldn't penetrate the energy barrier. Leah, eager to sense the Tesseract's power, raised his hand, a bolt of lightning brewing in his hand. Alright, I'll leave this thing to you. I'll go find Loki Dundon. Tony turned the engines and flew to the balcony below. Jarvis' voice rang out from within the Iron Man suit. Sir, I have bad news. This suit's weapon system is about to fail, and the energy source is running low. Alright, let Loki's brother talk to him. Tony spotted Thor approaching from a distance, hammer in hand, and decided to change into a new suit before returning. Since Thor could only fly with his hammer, his speed was slower than Leah's. As Iron Man left Leah, he leaped onto the Stark Tower balcony. On the rooftop, Leah's lightning bolt condensed into a spear. He hurled it at the energy transmitter below. Crack! Light shone in the air, and the lightning spear crashed down. Boom! The divine lightning spear pierced the energy curtain, causing the previously smooth surface to suddenly dent, pierced by perhaps 3 or 4 centimeters. The next second, The entire energy device was engulfed in silver lightning of energy like water rising into the sky, reaching the clouds. Stan Lee shattered the void and entered the Marvel Universe. Chapter 219, Chitauri Army. Above Stark Tower, a faint blue light shot up into the sky, swirling and twisting it into a vortex. The center of the vortex continued to expand, and from below, one could see an unfamiliar sea of stars. Oh no! Didn't I charge that thing? Li Ya's mouth twitched. Looking up, he saw countless aircraft and individual flying motorcycles charging out. The Chitauri army had begun its invasion of Earth. Boom! 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 Energy beams shot out from the Chitauri army, bombarding the streets of Manhattan, New York. The energy beams fell, causing explosions and fire. Those who had been enjoying their peaceful lives were stunned by the sudden appearance of the invaders. The explosions covered the entire city block and expanded outward at a rapid speed. "Save us," he cried out at the top of his lungs. "America in dire straits," Li Ya sighed, his eyes suddenly turning a fiery red. Two blazing beams of light swept across the sky, instantly blasting countless Chitauri aircraft to pieces. They fell from the sky in a shower of fragments. However, the portal in the sky continued to expand, and more Chitauri hordes swarmed in, overwhelming the heavens and the earth as they approached. "Tesseract, or I'll destroy it," Thor, brandishing Mjolnir, threatened Loki. "Ha, foolish brother, I heard you almost lost even the hammer." "Oh, but it's a blessing in disguise, you've become the hammer god." Loki was naturally aware of what had transpired on the mountain top. Mjolnir, said to be lifted only by those recognized by the hammer, was being lifted again. Strange, why did he say again? Even the fiercely protective Thor couldn't hold back at his brother's taunting. With a roar, he swung his hammer and struck Loki. "I've been waiting for this moment for ages. Let's fight." Despite losing his scepter, Loki still had other weapons no match for Thor in close combat. But Thor, aside from venting his anger with the first few blows, clearly gave his brother the edge in the rest of the fight. Iron Man, donning his suit, ignored the two gods displaying brotherly affection on his balcony. The Quinjet's wing was blown off, and it plummeted to its knees. With a furious roar, the Quinjet was suddenly torn apart by a pair of massive hands. Roar! Hawkeye's face turned green as he saw the green figure leap into the air. The Hulk was coming. Boom! The Hulk spun through the air in a beautiful parabola, slamming through the rooftop where Hawkeye and his men had ambushed him. He swung his arms in fury, crushing the building's walls like cardboard. "Don't kill Hawkeye. He's just being controlled, he's not the enemy." "Damn it!" Black Widow also climbed out of the wreckage. Watching the Hulk chasing Hawkeye around the world, she felt a deep pang of sorrow for him. Forget Barton. Now think about how to deal with these invaders. Captain America, shield in hand, stood on the street, gazing up at the sky. A vast army of Chitauri bombarded the streets of New York, and in the sky, a gap appeared, a gap leading to another world. Captain America had fought many wars, even defeating Hydra and helping America win its most crucial battle. But looking back on the battles he'd fought, none could compare to today. Was he getting old? Or had the world gone mad? At that moment, from a sky portal, a massive, mechanical whale-like cosmic beast, hundreds of meters long, swam through the sky like an ocean. Mu, the beast, its massive head and mouth full of sharp swords, passed through the portal and arrived in Manhattan, New York. It was a massive, heavily armored weapon cultivated by the Chitauri, its destructive power secondary to its purpose. Captain America watched the beast fly overhead and pressed the communicator in his ear. "Tony, do you see that monster in the sky?" Iron Man soared through the sky, steadily approaching the beast. His suit joined the SHIELD communication channel. Hearing Captain America's sigh, Iron Man managed to maintain a calm voice, saying, "I see, but I'm still processing it." The celestial beast soared into the skyscrapers of Manhattan. With a clang, hundreds of Chitauri soldiers emerged from either side of the beast. These soldiers swung down a rope like a swing and landed on the human world. As soon as the ugly Chitauri soldiers landed on the ground, they began a bloody massacre. These scenes were shared online by daring Americans, causing a global sensation. The world was ending. Meanwhile, on Stark Tower, even if Thor intentionally held back, Loki was still no match for his brother. But at the last moment, Thor relented. As he raised his hammer to crush Loki, he recalled the days when he and his brother had learned to fight together, gotten into trouble together, and ran together into the sunset. That was their lost youth. "Loki, wake up. Look at what you've done. Thor, the god of thunder, lowered his hammer for Loki devastation ravaging New York City. He saw countless innocents slaughtered by the Chitauri army, a scene of blood and chaos that resembled an infernal purgatory. You want to be crowned king, but is this the kind of king you want to be? All you led is a senseless slaughter. Loki stared blankly at the ground, stunned by the scene. He muttered, "It's too late to undo it now." Of course it can be undone. Hearing Loki's remorse, Thor was overjoyed. Had his brother finally been persuaded and turned over a new leaf? Sure enough, I'm a successful brother. Loki, as long as we brothers work together, everything can turn around. The two brothers exchanged glances, a moment of profound emotion. Loki seemed moved by Thor angered Thor, his brother, whose strength far surpassed Loki's, and he picked him up and began to beat him to pulp. Elsewhere, Captain America and Black Widow struggled to cope with the vast Chitauri army. Iron Man unleashed a barrage of firepower, blasting the celestial behemoths, but it seemed only to chip away at the surface, failing to penetrate their defenses at all. "Where's the Hulk? We need the Hulk," Iron Man shouted over the comms. He went after Hawkeye. "Hawkeye has angered the Hulk, and he's drawn all of his hatred," Captain America reported the situation. Black Widow, struggling to deal with the Chitauri soldiers, also spoke over the comms channel. "The Hulk is inherently difficult to control. Loki must have known that, so he had Hawkeye lure the Hulk away. Damn, Loki's plan must be right." As he spoke, a loud explosion echoed. The sky seemed to rip apart, and a massive, dazzling thundercloud erupted. The vast expansion of Chitauri soldiers vanished in the thunderclouds, their wails echoing through the sky. Boom! Another explosion echoed from the thunderclouds, and a figure gleaming with silver-white light flew towards them at high speed. It's Liam. Chapter 220, Avengers. Leia, shrouded in silver light, streaked across the sky. Wherever he passed, bolts of lightning flashed, pulsing the Chitauri soldiers into oblivion. Another sonic boom echoed, and Leia appeared above the giant celestial beast. His cape rustled behind him as he lowered his body and stomped his foot down on the beast's head. Boom! A shockwave laced with lightning iron spread out. As if struck by a planet, the beast let out a resounding wail, its massive body trembling as if drunk. It staggered and fell from the sky. Moo! The wail echoed through the air, and the beast, as if struck by a club, its front half falling. The immense momentum sent the back half flying high, rumbling and collapsing the surrounding buildings. Captain America and Black Widow stood on the ground, watching the miraculous blow. Leia subdued a space beast hundreds of meters long with a single kick. "Hey, Steve, do you think the Hulk could do that?" Black Widow asked. Captain America swung his shield, knocking down two Chitauri invaders, and said, "Maybe, but the Hulk can't fly." "Yeah, the Hulk can't fly," Black Widow replied, continuing to fight the invaders. Boom! Boom! The powerful fire ripped through the space beast's head armor. The final micro-anti-tank round penetrated the space beast's brain, causing it to explode with a bang. "Holy shit," Tony cursed from within his Iron Man suit, immediately turning and fleeing, while continuously attacking from behind. "Sir, the onboard weapons are depleted," Jarvis' voice rang out again. Tony checked the Iron Man suit's condition and found it was indeed depleted of weapons and a third of its energy. A vast Chitauri army was hot on his heels, giving Tony a headache. "Damn it. Calling Lee, 7 or 8 giant monsters have appeared at the portal, requesting backup. Also, can anyone come over and help? I'm facing too many enemies." At this moment, the flaws of Iron Man's suit became apparent. Limited by current Earth technology, Tony had been focusing on solving the problem of carrying the Iron Man suit. And the one he was wearing was the unfinished Mark 7. The Mark 7's greatest feature wasn't its combat capabilities, but its ability to be remotely summoned. This technology was later used in the Mark 42's automated assembly and wearable capabilities. Therefore, in terms of its weapon systems, the Mark 7 lacked the ability to sustain sustained combat. Hearing Tony's call for help, Leia and Thor's voices simultaneously echoed over the communication channel. "Roger, I'll be there." Crash! 2 thunderbolts echoed in the sky. The first, an immensely powerful bolt, shot skyward like a towering tree, its impact awe-inspiring even against the backdrop of the entire sky. This spear-like bolt pierced the sky and thunderously struck a giant celestial beast. Boom! In an instant, the beast's body exploded, its metal armor shattering and scattering, its flesh and blood scattering like a torrential rain. Having pierced the first beast's body, The divine lightning spear's power remained undiminished, traveling thousands of meters to shatter the body of another beast. The second bolt was much smaller. Like a branch from a towering tree, it struck Iron Man head-on. Whoosh! The moment Iron Man saw Thor swing his hammer, he abruptly swerved. The vast Chitauri army behind him didn't even have time to react before the thunderbolt summoned by Thor struck. Boom! The Chitauri army was annihilated. Thank you, Hammer Lord. Iron Man soared into the sky, waving to Thor beasts. Lea's divine power finally showed signs of draining. He shifted his tactics, charging into the vast Chitauri army, his heat vision blazing, sweeping away the vast horde. Even a celestial beast would flee from Lea's heat vision. A single strike would slice its massive body in two. Iron Man hadn't noticed before, but now, seeing Lea using his heat vision, he suddenly felt a strange sense of familiarity. Hey, guys, do you think Lea's abilities resemble those of a certain comic book superhero? Captain America and Black Widow never read comics, let alone Thor. Director Fury's voice suddenly interrupted the comms. Are you talking about the Avengers from DC Comics? Yeah, Iron Man Tony Stark finally snapped back to reality. That's a superhero I loved many years ago. Look at Lea. He can fly, he's invulnerable, he can cast lightning, and the same heat vision as Superman. And most importantly, didn't you notice the same emblem on his chest? Because this hero is from the DC Extended Universe, he only made a cameo appearance in the final battle against Darkseid. Director Fury, rarely interested, explained, when the Avengers were formed, they borrowed his name. Lea was just about to punch through the Astral Beast when he heard the conversation on the comms channel and froze. Everyone knows that the Marvel Universe includes DC Comics. But those Avengers they're talking about, could they be me? Oh my god. I've become a comic book character? Once upon a time, everyone around me was just comic book characters, but now, I've become their own superhero. I've killed all the space monsters, but, if you don't close the portal, our fight will be in vain. Lea also spoke on the communication channel. The Tesseract and the Mind Stone have the same frequency of energy waves. The Mind Stone can penetrate the field created by the Tesseract. After hearing this, Director Fury was silent for a moment. I know what to do, Coulson. You'll deliver the Mind Stone to the front lines. Yes, sir, Coulson said expressionlessly, indicating that this kind of thing was already a common occurrence. Chapter 221, Hawkeye. On the other side of the New York skyport, aboard a ship with 4 giant claws, a Chitauri clad in golden armor directed the continuous influx of troops into Earth. Commander, we've deployed 1/10 of our forces, 1/10 already, so Earth has been conquered. Despite the Chitauri's telepathic vision, the commander continued directing the troops' deployment. More importantly, in his view, conquering a low-level planet like Earth was a matter of course. However, the soldier observing the front lines lowered his head and said in a deep voice, "The troops we sent to Earth were completely annihilated." What? How is that possible? The Chitauri commander stared in disbelief. Nonsense. Earth's technology is no match for us, but it's true. There are suspected to be 2 Asgardians on Earth, and one of them has killed more than 10 space beasts. Battles against lesser civilizations, space beasts, with their superior defenses, can easily destroy entire cities. The Chitauri deployed over a dozen celestial beasts this time, but surprisingly, they were all slain by a single individual. Killed over a dozen celestial beasts? Damn it. Was that old immortal Odin responsible? The Chitauri commander couldn't think of anyone else who could accomplish half this feat, save Odin, the king of the gods. Not Odin, it seems, another god who can control thunder? Hearing this, the Chitauri commander sneered. God? Haha. No one can claim to be a god in front of that man. Prepare more troops immediately. No matter the cost, we must capture Earth. Yes, Commander. Thinking of that individual's order, the Chitauri commander couldn't even imagine the consequences of defeat. The Chitauri army on Earth was crushed by the combined efforts of Lea and his men. Of course, Lea accounted for 90% of the kills. In this large-scale mass battle, Lea's divine power transformed into thunder clouds, wiping out everything in his path, instantly annihilating tens of thousands of troops. In addition to the destruction of the celestial beasts, all the troops transported by them were also affected. Above ground, Hawkeye was pursued by the Hulk. To evade the Hulk, Hawkeye went to extreme lengths. He constantly dove between tall buildings, employing explosive arrows, smoke bolts, flash bolts, and even using the Chitauri soldiers as shields. Hawkeye used every trick he could to delay the Hulk. However, these tricks only infuriated the Hulk further. Roar! With another resounding roar, the Hulk smashed the Chitauri trooper's head with a single blow, leaping up and crashing into the building in front of him. Boom! The building in front of him was shattered by the Hulk, falling from the sky with countless shattered stones and glass, crashing down in front of Hawkeye. Damn it! Hawkeye's face darkened, and he reached for the quiver on his back again. But the arrows were already empty. Roar! The Hulk roared, and slammed his massive hand down. Bang! Fortunately, Hawkeye dodged the blow by rolling sideways. The Hulk slammed his palm against the ground, shattering the concrete with a resounding thud. Countless small stones flew out in the shockwave before he could think. The Hulk was hot on his heels, swinging his hands and smashing down. Pa! 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 The concrete on the ground was like a pool of soft earth, being torn apart by the Hulk's bare hands. The Hulk's attacks were incredibly powerful and swift. Even a touch from Hawkeye's small frame would have shattered him. The constant evasion had left Hawkeye's nerves strained, and he stumbled and fell to the ground. Hulk stood before Hawkeye with a slashing blow, his eyes flashing with cruelty, and he aimed another blow at Hawkeye's head. God! Hawkeye's face paled at the sight, and he closed his eyes. In reality, they had already shown signs of recovery when Lia crushed Loki's scepter. Hawkeye was only a mortal, after all, and completely freeing himself from the Mind Stone's control required a bit of excitement. And the Hulk chasing him for 10 blocks was simply too thrilling. With a swish, Hulk's palm crashed down, shaking the ground. Hawkeye didn't feel the crushing blow, but instead seemed to soar through the air. Hello, Agent Barton, are you awake now? Iron Man grabbed Hawkeye's arm and soared through the air. Tony, thank God, you saved my life. I was awake a long time ago. Fuck, did I get kicked in the head by a donkey? I dared to provoke the Hulk. Hawkeye sighed with lingering fear. Before Hawkeye could breathe a sigh of relief, the Hulk seemed to have truly set his sights on Hawkeye. He roared wildly from the ground, suddenly accelerating, and rushed towards the tall building ahead. He then smashed his hands through the wall of the building in front of him, continuing to climb upwards. Roar, hurry up. Tony, turn. The Hulk's coming. Hawkeye's heart was racing. Don't shake, fuck. I saw it, Tony roared from within his Iron Man suit. He had been flying precariously, holding onto Hawkeye with one hand, but now, facing the oncoming Hulk, Tony frantically revved his engines, swaying in the air. Calling Leah, Hawkeye nearly burst into tears upon hearing Tony's call. Who is Leah? What was the point of calling him now? Could he possibly be flying? The next second, a sonic boom echoed from the sky. Time in this world seemed to slow down. The Hulk's fist edged closer and closer to Iron Man and Hawkeye, and the expressions of terror on their faces grew more and more solemn. Just as the giant green fist descended, another, much smaller, met it. The two fists, one large and one small, formed a stark contrast as they collided in midair. Boom! As a resounding crash resounded, Iron Man and Hawkeye were merely caught in the aftermath of the impact. They were suddenly flung forward, spinning and slamming into the building behind them, sending them careening towards the ground. Iron Man's impact left a long dent in the ground, while Hawkeye, using his longbow to hook Iron Man's foot, flew down for a great distance, only releasing it when he saw a break in the ground. Even so, Hawkeye spat out a mouthful of blood as he landed. For the first time in his life, he felt old. In the air, Leah and the Hulk exchanged punches. He remained motionless, while the Hulk was sent flying, slamming into the ground like a meteorite. With a thud, the Hulk plummeted, his feet slamming into the ground, creating a deep crater. Leah also slowly descended, looking excitedly at the Hulk before. It's a rare opportunity to come to the Marvel Universe. If I don't give Hulk a good beating, it would be a waste of my trip. Chapter 222, Beating Hulk. Seeing Leah's expression, ready to pummel the Hulk, Iron Man struggled to his feet. Leah, don't do it, we're on the same side. It was fine if this guy had just beaten Loki, but then he even beat up Thor. Would it be Hulk's turn now? Could he defeat Hulk? Tony had no doubt about it, he was already sympathizing with Hulk. Roar! Seeing Leah's defiant expression, Hulk seethed with rage. Hulk, I hate you. Oh! Leah's fist suddenly grew larger in Hulk's field of vision, and before Hulk could react, it had already struck Hulk in the face. With a thud, Hulk's massive body toppled backward, his face twisted sideways. Boom! Hulk's massive frame, like a battering ram, crushed 4 or 5 cars before finally crashing through a wall. Roar! After being sent flying by a punch, Hulk roared in anger, waving his arms and rising again, charging at Leah. Boom, boom, boom. As Hulk ran, the ground shook slightly. Less than 30 meters from Lee, Hulk leaped up, clenched his fists, and brought down on Lee's head like a meteor hammer. Why are Hulk and Lee fighting? After clearing out the remaining Chitauri soldiers, Black Widow Natasha ran over. She saw Hulk leap up and hammer Lee, and her heart pounded for him. Iron Man, however, adjusted his suit and said, "Hulk's been a bit disobedient. Lee's going to teach him a lesson." Natasha looked at him with the "are you kidding me" expression, but she didn't have time to say anything more. Hulk's hands had already landed on Lee's head. With only 10 centimeters to spare, Lee managed to float slightly in the air to avoid being hammered into the ground, then raised his hands to block the blow. Bang! A shockwave spread, but the floating Lee remained motionless. Hulk's hands froze, unable to move an inch. Lee smiled, but to Hulk, it looked hideous. Ha! Bang! As Lee roared, he swung his fist, slamming into Hulk's chest. With a thud, Hulk's solid chest collapsed. Roar! In excruciating pain, Hulk clawed at Lee with his backhand. Lee reached out, and the two, one large and one small, clasped together, wrestling. The massive Hulk roared repeatedly, his face turning green, but the smaller one remained motionless. It was as if he wasn't pushing a man, but a mountain. God, there's actually stronger than the Hulk. Black Widow stared at the scene before her, a wave of disbelief forming. In her mind, the Hulk had always been synonymous with destruction. A head-on confrontation with the Hulk would only result in one outcome, being crushed to pieces. However, Lee took a step forward, the ground trembling violently, and the Hulk's body lurched backward uncontrollably. He was initially incredulous. Then, the Hulk stomped hard, the ground crumbling. His sturdy legs gradually sank into the earth, plowing 2 furrows. The most powerful Avenger, huh? I heard you're a good fighter, huh? With each sentence, Lee would punch the Hulk in the face. Now possessing 65% of his optimized Kryptonian DNA, Lee's lightest punches carried boundless power. Each blow sent the Hulk's body swaying uncontrollably. From a distance, he looked like a green tumbler, swaying from side to side. Iron Man watched with trepidation, while Hawkeye and Black Widow's lips twitched, their hearts already racing. Was this guy hitting the Hulk? The Hulk who'd casually rolled a tank into a ball? This Hulk couldn't be fake. Only Captain America had a thoughtful look. He looked from Leah to Thor, who was sweeping away the remaining Chitauri in the sky. Suddenly, he understood. Steve Rogers finally figured out what had happened on the mountaintop that day. Looking at Hulk, the poor green fat man's face was swollen from Leah's hammering. He shook his head desperately, and his steps were unsteady, as if he were drunk. Green fat man, are you still drunk? Can you control yourself? Leah grabbed Hulk's ear and leaned in close to him. Roar! Leah responded with a furious roar from the green fat man. It seems you're not convinced. Leah suddenly remembered a certain enhanced being he'd taught a lesson in the DC universe. A child's bad temper is often just an act, a good spanking will do the trick. Reflecting on this wise saying, Leah grabbed the Hulk's head and slammed it hard into the ground. Bang! The ground shattered. But that wasn't enough. Leah, still holding the Hulk's head, flew forward, scraping his face against the streets of Manhattan. Had never imagined that one day he would be the one being kicked. The feeling was so humiliating that even Loki, watching from a distance, couldn't help but shout with excitement. Nice. That's how it feels. After knocking the Hulk unconscious, Leah lifted him high into the air and slammed him to the ground, simultaneously driving his knee into the Hulk's spine. Boom. With a loud bang, the Hulk's spine was broken. Roar! Immediately, the Hulk's deafening roar could be heard throughout Manhattan. Anyone with hearing ability could detect the terrifying rage hidden within it. The Hulk's resiliency was remarkable, even a broken spine would heal in record time. Leah also sensed the rage within the Hulk's roar. Why had beating him up, instead of calming his fury, only intensified it? Was her method wrong? Or, wasn't she hitting hard enough? Definitely not hard enough, that must be it. With this thought, Leah pinned the Hulk to the ground and beat him again. The Hulk's roar echoed throughout Manhattan once again, but those who observed it noticed that the anger within it was fading. Instead, it was replaced by fear and grievance. Leah, that's enough. "You've nearly killed the Hulk." Black Widow couldn't believe she would ever say that. But the fact is, even though Hulk has extraordinary recovery abilities, he is lying on the ground with his back to the sky, his upper body covered in wounds and bleeding, his face swollen like a pig's head, and his eyes are filled with a look of despair. It's as if he is saying, "Why do you treat me like this? I'm still a child." Chapter 223, Hulk's Rage. As Leah pummeled the Hulk, the portal in the sky roared again. Another massive Chitauri army surged toward Earth. Leah pointed at himself, then at the Chitauri army in the sky, and addressed the Hulk, "I am your friend, they are your enemies." Feeling Leah approach, the Hulk shifted and shrank, a hint of fear in his eyes. Even against the abomination, the Hulk had never been so miserable, clearly devastated by the beating. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I'm your friend. I won't hurt you." Leah reached out and gently stroked the Hulk's arm, spreading his spiritual power to soothe the Hulk's heart. Captain America, standing nearby, couldn't stand it any longer. "Stop messing with the Hulk. There are so many invaders again. We're ready to fight, SHH. Steve, look how scared you've made the Hulk." "Shut up," Leah scolded, then turned to soothe the Hulk's young heart. "We're friends. Friends can't fight. If you want to fight," he raised his hand towards the Chitauri army. "If you want to fight, hit them." The Hulk's eyes were blank, and he gasped for breath as he muttered, "Friends, Dr. Banner." His IQ was only that of a 3-year-old. So, talking to him really required child-rearing tactics. To deal with a naughty child, you had to give him a beating before you could talk to him properly. The Hulk looked in the direction Leah pointed. "Friends, fight them together." His expression seemed to be asking Leah's permission. "That's right, let's fight them together." Leah nodded, looking at Hulk with encouragement. Feeling Leah's encouraging gaze, Hulk glared at the Chitauri army overhead, his muscles bulging as he roared again. Roar, roar, roar. The roar was deafening, and Hulk, able to plant his feet on the ground, leaped into the air. His massive form slammed into Chitauri aircraft, shattering at them. Ling. Friendship level raised to friendly, unlocking Hulk character. Error, correcting error, the system suddenly announced, surprising Leah. He had previously unlocked Bruce Banner's character card, but now it had unlocked Hulk's. It seemed there was a system bug. The Hulk's existence is somewhat like another personality, but not entirely. He's more like a new life form born from Dr. Banner's gamma radiation contamination. However, this life form parasitizes Dr. Banner's body and requires rage to induce its emergence. Ling. Data correction complete. Unlocking exclusive skill, Hulk's Rage, active skill. Once activated, base attributes like strength, defense, and speed are increased by 30%. The duration is 10 minutes, and the skill recharges in 1 hour. Note, this skill requires at least 1% of the Hulk DNA to be fused. A moment later, the system's voice sounded again. Leah noticed that the Hulk character card had shrunk and transformed into a unique skill, appearing in his basic attribute column. Leah originally had 2 exclusive skills for slave cards, Extreme Speed Domain and Iron Man. However, due to traveling through space, both were unusable. Fortunately, the skill obtained through this bug fix can be activated with just 1% of the Hulk DNA, regardless of the region of the universe. The easiest way to obtain the Hulk DNA is to equip the Hulk card in the main card slot for a few months. Iron Man watched the frantic Hulk ravaging the Chitauri army. His face was filled with disbelief. Really? That's even possible, of course. There's nothing a fight can't solve. If there is, then fight twice. Having gained a unique skill, Leah cheerfully shared his experience with Iron Man. Seeing Iron Man truly lost in thought, Captain America suddenly felt a headache. "Tony, you didn't really believe him, did you?" No. Iron Man Tony Stark quickly denied it, then stopped Leah as he was about to fly off to join the battle. He whispered, "What if I can't defeat the Hulk? You can make the Iron Man suit bigger and more powerful." Picking up the Hulk and hammering him is definitely not a dream. Leah patted Iron Man on the shoulder in encouragement. "Earth. Is it really appropriate for you two to seriously discuss how to beat the Hulk? What did Hulk do to anyone? He's still a child." "Oh, no, he's our teammate." Although the Chitauri invaders are large this time, Hulk joined the battle and took charge of the large number of invaders together with Leah and Thor. As for Captain America, Iron Man and others, they were responsible for finishing off the invaders and cleaning up the mess. Now that the civilians in Manhattan have been evacuated, the National Guard has also set up a defense line outside the city to prevent any fish from escaping. SHIELD helicarrier. Director Fury, the council has made a decision. Agent Hill came to the bridge and reported. I realize it, but this decision is stupid, Director Fury cursed angrily. On the surrounding screens, a video feed from the upper echelons of Congress showed a gray-haired senator with his hands folded in front of him. Director, you're closest to the battlefield. Send the nuclear bomb immediately. Blast it there, Senator, that's Manhattan. A nuclear bomb would affect all of New York. Unless my team is completely overwhelmed, I will never allow a nuclear strike against civilians. Director Fury said this with a sense of guilt. That group of bosses, especially those led by Li Yang, Iron Man, Thor, and the others, simply didn't obey his orders. Calling them his own team was pure self-flattery. Regardless of the universe, the government's top brass doesn't care about the lives of civilians, they just want to keep the situation under control. That's Director Fury. If it were a powerful woman from the DC universe, she'd have launched the nuclear bomb and found someone to blame for it, without the higher-ups having to intervene. Fortunately, the top leaders of the parliament were not aware of this. They asked, Director Fury, if your team can't stop it, it will be irreversible. If a nuclear bomb is dropped, it will be irreversible, Director Fury said, and hung up the video call in a cool manner. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224, Team fights can be lost, but Coulson must. Hill suddenly noticed a fighter jet on the deck taking off without permission. Director Fury, a fighter jet has taken off without permission, carrying a nuclear weapon. I repeat, it took off without permission. Upon hearing Hill's report, Director Fury immediately understood what was happening and rushed out with an RPG. There's no such thing as a no-kill policy in the Marvel Universe. If you disobey Director Fury's orders and SHIELD, I'll kill you. Rushing out of the deck, Director Fury aimed at a fighter jet taking off without a word and pulled the trigger. The rocket launcher fired, destroying the plane with a whoosh. However, that fighter jet wasn't carrying a nuclear weapon, the first one was just a cover. After Director Fury fired the RPG, the nuclear-armed plane finally took off and soared into the sky. Shit, Director Fury called Coulson. Coulson, there's a fighter behind you, carrying a missile, heading for Manhattan. In 3 minutes at most, the nuclear bomb it's carrying will level Manhattan, and the radiation will spread throughout New York, so. Director Fury, what do you want me to do? Coulson was sitting in the back seat of a helicopter, cradling the box containing the Mind Stone. When he received Director Fury's call, his heart was filled with rage. I want you to stop the bomb at all costs, Director Fury ordered. But, Director, Coulson was about to say something when the other end of the line hung up. He suddenly felt cold and couldn't help but hug the box tightly. With such a boss, Coulson felt like he was almost withdrawing. A nuclear bomb. That's a nuclear bomb. How do we stop it? Are we going to hit it head-on? 2 minutes later, fighter jets from the SHIELD helicarrier appeared in Coulson's sight. 12 miles from New York City, the fighter jets launched a nuclear bomb. Coulson's Adam's apple moved, and he said to the agent piloting the helicopter, Hey, David, there's a fighter jet launching a nuclear missile over there. How about ramming it? The pilot replied, Don't look at me like I'm crazy. The commander gave me a death order. Forget it, just jump into the sea. And by the way, give this box to Tony Stark. Tell him I'm sorry for ruining his honeymoon plans. Coulson exhaled deeply, his face ready for death. The pilot coughed slowly. Sir, I think Director Fury meant to get in touch with Iron Man or someone. Look, someone's coming. Coulson looked up and saw a dark figure flying over Manhattan. It was Leah. The next second, the nuclear missile almost grazed Coulson's helicopter. Leah's body sank, and he reached out to catch the missile, then flew towards the portal without looking back. God, is Mr. Leah sacrificing himself? Coulson was deeply moved by the sight. So Director Fury wasn't asking him to die. It turned out he cared about him. He couldn't bear to see him die. Fly into Manhattan immediately. I want to personally deliver the Mind Stone to Tony Stark. Coulson suddenly felt the urge to die for his friend. The pilot couldn't bear to discourage him. Sir, I must stop outside the cordon. As you can see, Manhattan is full of aliens, so, God bless you." With that, the helicopter landed in the square outside the cordon. Coulson, with a grave expression, disembarked, carrying the box. He looked up at the dense swarm of Chitauri soldiers in downtown Manhattan. "Oh my God. Going in would be like going to die. Can't I call Iron Man and get it myself?" The thought nearly brought Coulson to tears. At the same time, Leah flew into the portal, holding a nuclear bomb. Many Chitauri fighters tried to intercept him, but their heat vision kept them at bay. After flying through the portal, another vast starry sky unfolded before him. That was the Chitauri army's base. In the very center of the starry sky, a vast ship, obscuring the sun, appeared before Leah's eyes. Countless Chitauri troops flew out from that massive vessel. Even the giant beasts of the sky seemed dwarfed by it. That was the Chitauri mothership. Gazing at the mothership in the sky, Leah felt a flicker of doubt. In one version of the story, Iron Man blew up a nuclear bomb and destroyed the Chitauri mothership. Chitauri ships differed significantly from Kryptonian ones, perhaps due to their race. The Chitauri placed a greater emphasis on biotechnology. Therefore, the energy shield of such a massive ship was divided into 4 sections, the weak spot on the energy shield. He watched as the bomb drew ever closer to the ship, finally impacting with a roar, setting off a blaze of flames as fierce as the sun. On the ground, Coulson, determined to die, charged through the cordon without hesitation. His spirit was filled with a tragic, unwavering determination of "I will advance even if thousands of people are against me." However, before he had even crossed a block, Coulson was surrounded by a swarm of Chitauri soldiers. "Hand over the box, Chitauri." A Chitauri soldier, armed with a gun, fired a laser beam at Coulson's feet. A loud boom erupted, and Coulson took a step back, his face pale. "Calling Tony. Calling Thor. Calling Lee. I'm surrounded. Anyone, come and help me. I have the Mind Stone." Coulson stared at the Chitauri soldiers surrounding him, despair filling his heart. Thor fought in the sky, while Iron Man was also surrounded by countless Chitauri soldiers. Were too many of them. "Am I going to die?" Coulson sighed heavily, resigned to his fate as he clutched the box in one hand and pulled out a small pistol with the other. "I'll fight you." Coulson roared, raising his gun and preparing to fire. But the moment he raised his gun, the Chitauri soldiers around him collapsed in unison, like toys with dead batteries. The giant star beast soaring in the sky also tilted its head and plummeted to the ground. What happened? What's going on? Coulson clutched his heart. This day was probably the most exciting day of his career as an agent. He looked at the fallen Chitauri invaders with a look of confusion. Not long after walking, a man in a green robe blocked Coulson's way. He stared at Coulson with a bad look in his eyes and stretched out his hand. "Give me the box, or I'll kill you." "Brothers, tomorrow is Saturday, and there will be 5 more chapters tomorrow." Chapter 225, 2 Bullying to God. Loki. Coulson recognized the man instantly. It was none other than Loki, the evil god who had seized the Tesseract. "Since you recognize me, give me what you have." Loki took a few steps toward Coulson, his gaze fixed on the metal briefcase in his hand. Coulson instinctively stepped back. "Give up resistance, Loki. You've already lost." No. As long as I have the Mind Stone, I haven't lost." Even if the Chitauri army was defeated, Loki felt he could still use the Mind Stone to split these powerful warriors apart. He admitted that he had been careless, giving Leah the opportunity to crush the scepter in order to secure his capture retreat foolishly. "Go to hell," Loki sneered inwardly, stabbing Coulson in the back with his dagger in his hand. Just as the dagger pierced Coulson's heart, a figure plummeted from the sky. At the instant Loki thrust forward, he thrust his hand in front of the dagger. Clang! Loki felt as if he had struck a piece of steel, the dagger snapping. He roared, "Who?" Leah continued to thrust his hand, a surge of divine power emanating from it. He discovered that as long as he used his divine power to counteract the power imbued with the Asgardian artifact, his steel body could still withstand the Asgardian weapon. Simply put, Leah had overcome Superman's weakness of low magic resistance. Ordinary Asgardian artifacts simply couldn't penetrate his defenses. "Loki, you should have run." Leah glanced at the startled Coulson, then backhanded Loki a slap. With a snap, Loki was sent flying. Enough. Just as he was about to recover the Mind Stone, Leah's sudden intervention infuriated Loki. He glared at Leah and Coulson, roaring, "Who do you think you are? I'm a god. You fools. How dare you defy the will of God? Without waiting for Loki to finish, Leah stepped forward, grabbed Loki's foot, and swung it back, pounding away left and right. A flurry of cloaked hammering brought tears to Loki's eyes. What a disgrace to a god. It would have been fine if you'd swung it once, at least no one besides Thor saw it. But this time, in front of so many people, Loki lay dejected in a deep pit, listening to the constant snapping of photos from the crowd and media outside the court and not far away. Too ashamed to face anyone. Ignoring Loki's feigned death, Leah glanced at the portal in the sky. The energy transmitter hadn't yet been deactivated, and something with the same origin as the Tesseract was needed to penetrate the cube's shield. Agent Coulson, you did well. Give me the box. Leah patted Coulson's shoulder in encouragement. But Coulson nervously gripped the box. You're not Loki, are you? Hearing this, Leah was stunned for a moment, then shook her head. He hadn't recovered from the shock of what had just happened. Without bothering to talk to Coulson, Leah simply scooped him up and flew to the roof of the Stark building. Woo! Wah! Experiencing this kind of flat-footed takeoff for the first time, coupled with a 780-degree aerial spin, Coulson immediately vomited, leaning against the wall after landing. Leah opened the box and took out the transparent container inside. She crushed it. The Mind Stone was in Leah's hand. Dr. Eric leaned over weakly and said to Leah, use that thing to cut off the Tesseract's energy supply, but you'll need something sturdy. Ordinary objects can't withstand the cube's energy. Leah smiled. It's just the Tesseract. With that, Leah reached out and reached into the Tesseract's protective shield. Buzz! When his hand touched the cube's shield, a shocking surge of energy spread. It was as if Leah had plunged his hand into boiling magma. Even with his defenses, he could feel the terrifying heat. After using the Mind Stone to open the cube's shield, Leah reached out and ripped the cube from the center of the energy transmitter. A weak energy shockwave spread, and the beam of light that had opened the portal suddenly dimmed. In the sky, the portal gradually shrank, finally fading into nothingness. Captain America, exhausted from the battle, breathed a sigh of relief as the sky returned to its normal state. It's finally over. We won. The entire SHIELD helicarrier, watching the surveillance footage, cheered. Countless news media outlets converged on Manhattan, New York, eager to get the latest crucial information. News of the alien invasion in New York City instantly flooded the internet worldwide, sparking a heated debate about the existence of superheroes. Of course, the most widely circulated video was the video of Leah pounding Loki. That guy claims to be a god? Don't be ridiculous, he's a psycho. The weakest god in history has been born. By the way, who's the one who beat up the weak god? I knew I must bring Loki back to Asgard, and the cube, Thor declared, hammer in hand. Tony, now dressed in a suit, stood before Thor. I'll give you the Tesseract, but can I borrow it for some research? As online discussions raged, Leah and Thor imprisoned Loki in Stark Tower. It's the key to Leah's return to his own universe. As the Space Stone, it could completely replace the Speed Force and break through the barriers of time and space, but Leah needed to learn how to use it. Thor, knowing Leah's origins, said, the Tesseract can help rebuild the Bifrost. Perhaps it can take you back to your homeworld. The Bifrost can travel across the universe. Leah seemed to hear something unbelievable. Thor shrugged. Sure, I'm in another universe right now. Leah slapped him in the face. She'd really overestimated Thor's intelligence by discussing space with him. 3 days, Hammer God, give me 2 days. Once I'm done researching, I'll return the Rubik's Cube to you. Tony held up 3 fingers, vowing. Okay, 3 days, Thor agreed, but his mind was pounding on someone else. Jane Foster, the woman Thor met when he first arrived on Earth. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.